Okay, so we are now starting to record this one. All right. Let's change this one. Okay, again, good morning. Welcome to the second part of block one of the classes. This is also the main part for your related to the assessments. I'm going to explain to you today about general overview about why are we doing some work on water, because we have a lot of challenges right now, especially on global water scarcity, and what are some alternatives of sources of water that we can do, as well as to look at more specifically on the human side of any project. So this is more of the social aspect. So this is more of the stakeholder engagement part. Before you go to the other modules, the module 2 and 3 will be more of technical side, which is more calculation and designing. But this part where I'm going to discuss to you today is also a very important one, very important aspect that you need to always consider, especially if you are an engineer working on a project. You need to consider this part of community or stakeholder engagement. All right, I'm sure you have already introduced yourselves yesterday. But I just want to see some faces before we start. Can I just have a quick look, just maybe 30 seconds to just turn on your camera and say hi to everyone? I think that would be a good start for our morning session. Is that possible? If not, if you are still in bed or just woke up, that's fine. But if some of you can show yourselves, that would be great. Anyone? Are you able to show yourselves aside from myself? I can only see some black squares here. Okay, just waiting. All right, nobody. Okay, that's fine then. I fully understand. It's very early in the morning. There, Professor Sean is there. So good morning. Yes. All right. Yeah. So I'll just start with our lecture for today. So just a bit of introduction about myself. I'm one of the lecturers of this class with Professor Sean as subject coordinator, with Dr. Shiro Puncho as the other lecturer. I am a senior lecturer from the School of Civil and Environmental Engineering. I can see a number of familiar names here. Many of you are still undergraduate, and I think many of you are also under my subject before in undergrad. So good to see a lot of you here. And also some are also in my other subjects. So very, very familiar names. I did my PhD in South Korea, have a research interest in a number of water-related research from water energy nexus, from solar-driven desalination, some more materials as well. And I do 3 teaching of the subjects, 1 undergrad, the principles of environmental engineering, and also 2 postgraduate, this subject, as well as another sustainable energy resources subject. All right, so for today, basically what we are going to do today, we will discuss about overview about the global water scarcity problem and what are the alternative technologies that we can do to support or augment this problem of water scarcity. And more specifically, we're going to discuss about community engagement, especially in the water sector. Many of you probably will ask, why is it important? And I think at the end of this module, you will probably realize that the importance of having the stakeholder engagement in any project that you do, especially once you graduate, if you go to the industry and you are in charge of some projects, then community engagement is paramount. To be part of that sustainability aspect, you need to do community engagement or stakeholder analysis before engaging into the start of any project. So this part is not very technical in the sense that we don't do any calculation in this module, but this is very important. The concept of understanding the concept, the principles, as well as the various methods and the strategies that you are supposed to do when you do community engagement, and why, understanding why we need to do this. So the learning adjective is to understand how the social and technical aspects are merged, are connected with each other, and the management of water system and how they relate and affect each other. All right. So it's not only about knowing technology. For engineers, we are very proud of providing solutions, right? We are providing solutions to many problems, for many pollution problems, for example, or some for civil engineering, some construction problems, and trying to provide some solutions. But is not only about having the technology, but rather you need to also include in whatever project you do about the social aspect, because ultimately the end user will be the community, all right, or the people. So there will be a lot of stakeholders involved, and you need to consider them, because most of the projects that fail are those projects that fail to do community engagement or stakeholder analysis or stakeholder engagement. So this is a very, very important part for us as an initial stage of planning. You need to include in whatever project you are involved with. All right, so this is our main focus for today. So we have 3 hours for today. What I will do is I provided you already of the lecture slides on Canvas. I hope you have already visited Canvas. So I'll show you it again. Let me just, okay. Should be here. So in Canvas, all of materials are here. The reading materials are in black one, and some related videos, for example, some of the desalination videos, even EndNote videos is here. And then the lecture slides are here. So most of the lecture slides that we provided earlier are all here. So these are the complete lecture slides. But what I will do today, I provide a simplified version, because just to fit in the 3 hours that we have for today. So I provide these simplified version. I should have made it available. So you can see this one now, the simplified version for today, but we're going to take the whole 3 hours. And at the last stage, or the last part of our lecture, will be explaining to you the assessments. How are we going to address the assessment? How are we going to work the assessments? Because this subject is designed to have one module. Each assessment is related to one module. So the first assessment, the task 1 is related to this module, and then so on with the task 2 and task 3 for the other modules as well. So you can you can follow with me with the lecture for today with using these slides here. All right, okay. So I'll go ahead with this one. Okay, global water challenge, and I think everybody knows about this, and we are already familiar about the challenges we are facing right now. Not only in water, there's a lot of pollution challenges, but in fact, global water challenge is a very big challenge, not only for this year, but for so many years already. And in fact, because of the increasing population, more and more people are also having this water crisis. We have water scarcity problem. About almost 2 billion people, or about 1/4 of the global population, has absolute water scarcity. So this is more on the physical water scarcity. So what does it mean? What do you mean by physical water scarcity? Anyone, what do you mean by physical water scarcity? Can I ask, let's say Ella? Ella, what do you mean by physical water scarcity?
Hello?
Yes, Ella, yes.
So the lack of water.
All right, physically, the actual lack of water, is it? So there's no source of water, that's what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Okay, very good. We have two kinds of scarcity. We have the physical scarcity and the economic water scarcity. So in this case, the physical one is without the lack of the actual source of water, or there is a source of water, but there is just too much demand. So the amount of water that is available, it cannot really complete all the demand because of the large population in that area. So there's really absolute water scarcity. So this is not enough. Economic water scarcity, on the other hand, will have, maybe you have some water. There's a lot of sources of water in your area, but you don't have the infrastructure, or you don't have the technology to access that water. So still there is a water scarcity because you don't know how to access that water to provide to the population. All right. But in this case, it's physical. There's a lot of places on Earth now that are having problem with water scarcity. So as you can see from here, I think it's in the year, many years ago. Of course, this time is changing because of the climate change and everything that we are facing right now. For example, in early 2000s, we have a lot of water scarcity in Australia because of the millennium drought that we experience here. So there's a lot of water scarcity. This time you can see there's a lot of rain coming in now. We have some good available of water, but it's not all year round. So eventually the average time is we're still scarce of water, especially that we are increasing in population. Africa is one that has really physical water scarcity. And that is also very important part for them to really have an alternative source of water so that they can provide their people with fresh water. So the water use has been growing twice the rate of population increase, as you can see here. So it means that there's more demand of water, but the increase of population has increased that demand. And so there's a lot of shortage of water. So these are some of the reasons, especially climate change is one of the major reasons why we are having some water scarcity problems. The changes in the climate, which affects global warming, okay, it goes towards global warming. So the global warming increases the overall temperature of the earth. And this also changes the way water is evaporated in some parts. Some other parts are having flooding, the other parts are having drought. So this also changing the dynamics in terms of the availability of this water. So some of the main reasons, as I mentioned, rapid population. We're almost 8 billion people right now. So there's a rapid increase of our population. Climate change is a major factor of having this water scarcity problem. A lot of people are also going towards the urban cities, right? You can see from here, the green or the blue-green side are those that are in the 2020s. There's a rapid increase in terms of people going to the urban cities. So they're going here in the cities and trying to, make their lives better. But it also makes the necessity, our amenities or the water availability much scarcer because of the more population. So this one just shows you how much of the impact of the global temperature increase. So we are trying to make the increase or control the increase of our Earth below 2 degrees Celsius. All right. As much as possible, we try to maintain up to 1.5 degrees Celsius only. Beyond 2 degrees Celsius is very, very dangerous because that's where a lot of changes, like for example, glaciers are melting. And when the glaciers are melting, then it will increase the flooding because of the increase in seawater elevation. So this time we are likely in this range right now. So we're trying to make sure that we are also controlling any climate change by controlling CO2 emissions, for example. And this also directly affects the water availability that we have. Another source of, or another reasons why we have some issues with water is because a lot of water that instead of going towards drinking, for example, drinking purposes, a lot of water that we are withdrawing is actually goes to agriculture. All right. In fact, it's around 70% goes towards agriculture. And in agriculture, when you use water, a lot of this water are actually going to waste because not all of the water will be absorbed by the plants. They are going to be, disposed of in streams, So a lot of these 60 to 70% of water withdrawals are wasted. And instead of, unless we can use some alternative source of water that are not fresh water, then we are wasting fresh water that are supposed to be used for our own consumption. Industry is around 22 to 25%, and only about 13% goes towards our urban consumption or residential consumption or community consumption. So only a small part of this one. So this is only one of the reasons as well that we need to make sure that the water that we are using for agriculture are not those high quality water. So when we say high quality water, those water that are supposed to be good for drinking purposes. Okay, so we can reuse other source of water that are not too high in quality just for the sake of watering the plants or for agriculture. All right. So what we are discussing now is very related to the Sustainable Development Goals. We always mention this one because everything we do right now, we have to think about sustainability. So sustainability is doing something now without affecting the future generations, right? We can sustain our life. We can, meet our needs at the present, but without, sacrificing the needs of the future generation. So that's sustainability, right? So that's why the United Nations has developed these sustainable development goals, 17 of which, and one of number 6 is clean water and sanitation. All right. So these are very bad projection. For example, in 2050, there's 1 in 4 people will be affected by recurring water shortages. So this is a very big challenge, and we need to do something now in order to provide, future provision or for consumption of people that will be affected by future shortages of water. So 80% of wastewater resulting from human activities is discharged into rivers or sea without any pollution removal. This is very, very true, especially for underdeveloped and developing countries, because they don't have the facility, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the economic ability as well, the money needed for that, and the technology. So most of these are discharged. So what does it mean? So if we are discharging wastewater directly to the sea, we are also contributing to the pollution of that receiving body. So for developed countries, yes, especially like for example in Sydney or in Australia, we have a number of wastewater treatment plants, which we are also reducing the pollutant load that we are disposing to the water bodies, right? So we have that technology and that capacity. But other nations, small nations, for example, small economic nations, then they're not able to do that. So this is a problem, okay? And instead of, we're talking about wastewater here, where it's also a good resource. In fact, it's a golden opportunity to get something good from that wastewater as a way of, providing or augmenting your water supply, which we are going to talk a little bit more later on. So the Sustainable Development Goals was developed many years ago, and then there is this group of people with engineers and scientists, some medical professionals. They group together, and they also identified, especially for environmental engineers, not only limited to environmental engineers, but also engineers in general, 5 grand challenges. So they identified here sustainably supply food, water, and energy. That's the first challenge. And we have curb climate change, design a future without pollution, create efficient and healthy resilient cities, and foster informed decisions and actions. All right, so let's talk about a bit number 1, sustainably. So the keyword is sustainably, to be sustainable. And there is a nexus here, food, water, and energy. In fact, 1 and 2 can be grouped together because climate change is also part of this nexus. So if you look at the 4 parts here, you have climate, energy, food, and water. They are very interconnected. And if you are in my other class as well, I explained this one, the interconnection of this one. We need energy to produce water. Like for example, how do we do that? Just getting your, if you are listening to me, Mitch Layton, why do we need energy to produce water, or do we need energy to produce water? Mitch, are you there?
Oh, yeah, sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah. Do we need energy to produce? How are they related, energy and water?
Well, we use water to produce energy.
How?
Then like dams.
Yes, very good. A very good example. Okay, that's one good example, Mish. You have dams. So if you have hydropower, so you use water to produce electricity by using the how to say, the potential energy turn into kinetic energy and downwards, and then you can turn the turbine to produce electricity. That's one thing. That's relationship. Another relationship is that a lot of our energy producing plants now are power plants. And in power plants, you need some heat exchangers because you're using heat there to power the steam or to make steam. So you need heat exchanger in that power plant. And in order to do so, the heat exchanger needs to be cooled down as well. So water is used as a cooling agent for that. All right, in a heat exchanger, you have a cooling agent. You can discharge your water in the river by cooling down that in the heat exchanger, because you cannot just directly discharge any water, hot water in the river or seas, because it will change the dynamics or the whole quality of that receiving body of water. The pH, the temperature will also affect the seawater life. Climate is definitely, as I've mentioned, is very related to water. So if you change the climate, there's a climate change, the weather changes, There will be droughts. There will be a lot of rain, like for example, what we're experiencing now in Queensland and somewhere in northern New South Wales. There's a lot of rains and flooding. That could be also an effect indirectly by climate change or some other parts of the world. All right, so there's always a relationship with that. And of course, food and water. Yes, definitely, we need water to plants, for the plants to grow up. So we have to water the plants. And of course, the food, we use food to provide energy for us, and also we can use that for producing water as well. The last one, I don't want to talk more of this one because very self-explanatory, but I want to focus more on the fifth one, because this is where our module 1 will come in. So there are 5 challenges. The last one is foster informed decisions and actions. So this one is informed decisions and actions. This relates, okay, to the involvement of the community in the the information or the actual decision making of any related solutions, like water problem, like water plants, for example. They have to be informed from the start so that will be more sustaining. That's why the community engagement is part of this process here. You need to have that informed decision making and actions together so that your project will have more sustainable future, rather than a project that will stop right away because of the community is trying to stop that project because they don't like it or they don't understand the project. We will explain that more in a later part. So this I would highlight, number 1 and number 5 will be 2 of the major or the grand challenges that we are facing right now. In Australia, Australia is also is a big challenge in terms of overall water availability. So it is actually considered the driest inhabited continent. So with people. So inhabited continent is the driest one. There are vast of lands in Australia that also quite dry. In fact, if you were here in the early 2000s, there's a millennium drought, and I think Professor Sean has mentioned this one yesterday. That we had a lot of problems with water. So there are a lot of water restrictions at that time. The shower, the time of shower is restricted. You can only shower for a few minutes. You cannot water your plants outside your house. You cannot clean your car by water, because we're trying to limit the use of water because of the shortage of water at that time. There was no rain for many years. I mean, the rain was there, but very little amount of rain. And then, so there's a drought for many years. Okay, so we had that problem before, and it will come back in the future as well, because the season is changing. The average rainfall expected to decline in many parts of Australia. In 2019, it's around 300 millimeters, and I think this time, if you can see around us, there's a lot of rain and a lot of flooding. So it could increase some of the average rainfall probably for this year, but it keeps on changing. But ultimately, we still have a problem with water around Australia, especially that our population is growing. All right, so we're around more than 25 million right now. And then more is, we keep on increasing year by year. So it means that the need and the how to say, the ability of that water has to meet that need of the increasing population. We also use about 70% for agriculture. All right. Good thing we had a number of alternative sources of water that we can use for agriculture. So we are not wasting the fresh water, the high quality fresh water for these purposes. All right. And we had some water restrictions I mentioned. It's numbered 1, 2, 3, for example, depending on the severity of the drought. So the highest, for example, 3 is where there's a lot of really complete restrictions on the use of water. 1 would be a little bit of restriction, and then you go higher, then there will be a lot of restrictions. And this is based on our dam levels. All right. As of now, many of our dams in New South Wales, for example, if you look at the website in Water New South Wales, a lot of our dams are 100% capacity. So some are actually overflowing because of a lot of rains right now. But previous years, it's not the case. Previous years is below 50%. So once it goes down around 30%, there's a lot of restrictions going on, because we have to be very careful about meeting all the needs of the people without really how to wasting the water that we have, the small water amount of water. That's why in late 2000, around 2010, we have the Sydney desalination plant. All right, that's the reason why we built that desalination plant, for the very main reason to supply or augment our water supply because of the drought. Now, there are two main ways. There's two how to say there are many conventional approaches of sourcing our water. Conventional sources are those sources in nature, for example, and also those that are man-made. So nature, we have lakes and rivers. So these are from nature. And then we have also dams that we are man-made, but still nature is just making the dams, and then a river, the water body that we try to store water for purposes of distribution. But these conventional sources of water are dwindling in terms of its capacity. So lakes and rivers are going dry because of the drought. There are some issues as well. Dams are also not always at a full level. There are sometimes there are also because of the drought, they're also going below the allowable level for safe how to say safe distribution of water throughout our community. So these are not enough. Okay, so these are not enough. So if we want to have a more sustainable water management, we need to find some other ways from non-conventional sources. All right, because these are the conventional ones, but they are not enough because a lot of changes in our climate as well as changes in the amount of water in nature. So we need to source out from somewhere. All right. So where is this somewhere? All right. Okay. So the other non-conventional sources of water that I'm talking about is wastewater, one source, and another source is seawater. And I think most of you are very familiar now of this, especially if you're doing environmental engineering. I think you've been hearing a lot of these terms already about wastewater reuse and water reclamation, for example, and seawater desalination. And this is a very important, these two technologies that we are going to, this source of water are very, very important part of the future sustainability of water management, right? We need to make sure that we get other sources of water aside from these conventional ones. All right, the first one that I'll have a bit of explanation is desalination. So desalination is the technology there. The source is the seawater. So if we look at around us, and we know this from our earlier studies in high school, elementary, that the vast amount of water that we have is mainly seawater, okay? Around 97% of the world of that water is ocean. And so ocean is basically a saline water, all right? There's salt in this, right? So there's, if you look at the ocean, if you look at that amount in seawater, all right, only around 35 grams of that water is actually salt, all right? And the rest are actually water, okay? If you look at 1 kilogram, okay, 1 kilogram, then you have around 965 of water and only 35 grams of salt. And when we say salt, it's not only NaCl, sodium chloride, but there are other parts there, all right? There are many constituents there, but mainly sodium and chloride, sodium chloride, all right? So like a table salt. But so in that sense, there is an opportunity as an alternative source of water is the seawater, because why not, access or try to separate this thing, separate the pure water from the salt, all right? And how do we do that? So this is the process now of seawater desalination. So we have seawater minus the salt contents, then we can have some potable water. So that's why we have desalination plants. Two main methods to do that. So the most conventional ones that we are using in a very big plants are based on thermal desalination. So thermal desalination is just basically heating up the water. It's just like a natural evaporation process, evaporation condensation process. So if you are boiling water and then you condense back that water, it becomes pure water, right? Because once you evaporate, the salts do not come together with that evaporation, the water vapor. It's a pure water. So in this case, it's just a simple concept for that. So evaporate this water, then it's condensed back, and then it becomes distilled water or fresh water in that sense, right? So, but if you look at this system, you are applying energy. You are energy to heat up the water, right? So it's a very also energy intensive system. All right. So there's a newer one, not very new, but this is considered now the state of the art based on membrane technology. And this is the main basis of our class as well. In this class, in module 3, you are going to talk about desalination, seawater desalination using membranes. And membranes can be used for desalination and also can be used for wastewater reuse. So membranes we are more focusing in this class. So the state of the art is reverse osmosis. As you can see here, there's salt water and there's a membrane here. So the membrane is a semi-permeable membrane. So this membrane is designed that only water can pass through, and the rest of the solid particles, solid materials, impurities will be left behind at the other side. How do we do that? We have to overcome the pressure here. So the osmotic pressure has to be overcome. So you have to apply a lot of pressure on the salt water. Then the membrane will hold off all the solid materials, solid impurities, and only the fresh water is coming out on the other side. So doing so, you are also applying high pressure in this sense. So the high pressure will also entail a lot of pumping power. So pumping means if you use pumps, you are using electricity. So electricity is also expensive. So you need to have a lot of energy used for this one as well. But in terms of overall efficiency, in terms of the quality of the water produced, a reverse osmosis is now considered the state of the art. Most of the desalination plants around the world now are using reverse osmosis as a way of desalination. Some are still using this one, but it's very much increasing in terms of the use of reverse osmosis. All right, so this is now the process of desalination. The good thing about desalination is we can produce a really high quality water. In fact, this is good for drinking. If you have the right process, the right pre-treatment and all of that, depending on your source water, then you will have a good quality of water. Now, if you look at, this is just basically the process, how it goes. You have seawater here, and then there's an intake. It goes to some pre-screening as well as pre-treatment facilities, and it goes towards the membranes. So membranes look like this. This will be explained further in module 3. What the module 2 also explains about membranes, how it works, how it is designed. But this looks like this in real life. So these are very big, these are very big cartridges of modules of membranes. And then they collect this, the water passes through this one, the seawater, and we separate the salt from the pure water. And then, of course, it goes towards a drinking water supply tank that can be distributed towards the community. There are many benefits of this desalination. Number one is we have very good high quality water. In fact, this is a good quality really for drinking with all this process here. The best one, that is the main reason why we built the Sydney desalination plant and also other desalination plants in Australia, is because it is a water security technology. It means that it is climate independent source. It doesn't really, because the main source of dams, for example, the water in dams are mainly because we mainly are mainly depending on rainwater. All right. So if there's a rain, the dams will be full, full, and that's good. We can provide water. But if there's no rain, what shall we do? All right. So in that sense, desalination doesn't care. Rain or no rain doesn't care because seawater is always there. There's a lot of seawater. So this is climate independent source. All right. So we can always provide water as needed. Like, for example, lately I think 2 years ago, we started to produce some water from desalination just to augment, to provide additional water source for drinking purposes or other purposes as well. And of course, availability, very high availability. Seawater is always there. And as I mentioned, climate independence means we don't care about rainfall or not, it's always there. The problem is the cost. As I mentioned earlier, you need to apply a lot of pressure here. And of course, you use a lot of membranes as well. So it means it's very energy intensive. All right. So it means that if you are a small country or a small community, you are not able to afford this one because the cost of the process, the production of water, you have to, you have to how to share that cost to the consumers, right? So the cost will be felt by the consumers. It's an energy intensive process, and also it contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. All right, so most of the electricity, source of desalination are fossil fuel based. All right, they're coming from the main grid. Good thing right now, there's a lot of uptake of renewable energy. So we can offset the use of that fossil fuel based electricity by offsetting into renewable energy. For example, in our city desalination plant, we are using grid electricity, which is a fossil fuel based electricity, mainly by coal-fired stations producing that electricity. So we use that one to power the desalination plant. But the desalination plant itself is also offsetting, or it means that they're also buying some energy from a wind turbine somewhere in New South Wales. So whatever is the amount that they are using here as fossil fuel, they are trying to produce renewable energy from wind turbines as well, so a similar amount. So it means they're trying to offset. So in a way, it's a good thing because you are producing CO2 here, but at the same time, you're trying to produce or use renewable energy. But overall, maybe not a very sustainable thing because you're still producing CO2. So that's those are the two things that need to be considered for the cost of desalination. All right. So generally, people are more accepting of using desalinated water. If it's based on a very old, this is an old survey, and I think this is still very, very we can still assume a similar view from people these days. All right. They are very much positive in terms of accepting desalinated water. Okay, very high acceptance. So seawater desalination can provide a cost-effective source of potable water for Australian cities. Most of them are agreeing. All right, so the blue, red, and green are strongly agree, and somewhat agree. So majority is actually agreeing that it can be a cost-effective process. It can provide a sustainable source of potable water. So the key term is potable for drinking purposes. And then seawater can be treated and managed to a level that is sufficient for safe and reliable potable supply. So it's just very, very high, very, very agreeable. So most of the people think the reverse osmosis and the process of desalination is very good and mature technology that can produce high quality water. But aside from that, what do you think gave the people that sort of view? Aside from the quality of the produced water, is there any other factor that you think people would definitely agree with this kind of view? May I ask some of you here to get your opinion? Sagar Bakunche. Sagar, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What do you think is the other factor? We know that there's a high quality of water, but why do you think more people are more accepting of desalination technology compared to other, like for example, wastewater reuse?
I think the costing.
Sorry. Oh, cost. All right. Okay. The cost. Do you think the cost is a good? Is because I mentioned the cost is more expensive. It's expensive. So do you think it's a major factor for that?
No, it's not major, but they think it is good rather than the wastewater, recycled
Okay.
wastewater.
All right. So I think what you're saying is that regardless of the cost, as long as they know that the water is clean at the end, the high quality, they're more favorable on that one. Right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yes. I think some people are also thinking like that, regardless of the cost. As long as the quality of the water is good, they're fine with that one. What other factors do you think, Joseph Daly? Joseph, are you there?
Yep. Hello.
Yes. So what do you think makes people more accepting of seawater desalination
Would it be
compared to wastewater reuse?
Would it just be general the public perception towards wastewater compared to seawater?
All right. Yes, you're very right with that. So it's the source water. Yes, it's the source of that water. Thank you, Joseph. So this one is a very big factor, because if you compare wastewater as a source and compare with seawater as a source, the source itself, you can see the difference in terms of the cleanliness or the dirtiness of that source, right? Seawater, generally, we are okay because we go to the beach, we swim in the beach, so no problem. There's not much bacteria. We think we don't. There's only salt there. There could be some impurities. But if you compare that one with the wastewater, if you think about it, it is the water that's coming from our houses, for example. We see how dirty it is. So the source itself is a big factor. All right, the source of the water. So there's what Joseph has mentioned is more of the perception of the people, and this is one of the main concepts we are going to discuss today as well when we talk about that in community engagement. Okay, should be here. All right. So the other alternative source of water is a wastewater. All right. So wastewater. In fact, wastewater. If you look at wastewater in the 1980s, this wastewater is considered to be a big disposal problem. How do we dispose wastewater? All right. We didn't see at that time how big of a resource it is in terms of getting some fraction of that as a pure water, as a fresh water source. So before, we're just thinking about how do we dispose it. All right. But it has come to with the new technologies were able to really clean the water. So there's a lot of conventional wastewater treatment processes, and as well as membranes that we are going to talk on module 2 and 3. Then there comes a time that people are realizing, or even researchers or engineers realizing, that we can actually separate the bad from the good in the wastewater, and then we can reuse that wastewater depending on the planned use. All right, the quality of the water will depend on the end use. So wastewater reuse is the use of treated wastewater. We treat that wastewater for many beneficial uses. All right, so it could be flushing, washing, it could be for irrigation, for watering the plants, or it could be for industries, cooling, cleaning the floor, or some other parts. And ultimately, it's good for drinking. So the highest quality in this sense for consumption is drinking. Of course, there are other quality of water that you can increase in terms of quality for industrial purposes, like for example, semiconductor water. It has a different quality, maybe much higher in terms of the impurities inside the water, or the constituents inside the water. But for drinking purposes, this is the highest for human consumption. So we have a lot of wastewater treatment plants for various purposes, all right, beneficial uses. So we treat the wastewater here coming from domestic, industrial wastewater, and then we try to treat with various processes, which will be explained in the later blocks, in the later modules. Specific, more in depth in there. And then one of the ways to do that in terms of potable wastewater reuse, all right, having been treated already in a wastewater treatment plant, then from that we go towards a pre-treatment like membrane filtration, and then goes towards some pre-treatment methods here, and then goes towards the main method of producing high quality water, which is reverse osmosis. So this is a multi-barrier treatment method. So there are many barriers, and then some carbon filtration, further treatment, some putting more of the minerals back, for example, and it becomes potable water. All right. So this part here is the highest quality that we're expecting for wastewater reuse. Many of the wastewater reuse or wastewater treatment that we are doing right now are for non-potable purposes. In fact, in Australia, we don't have any wastewater reuse for potable purposes. All right. And that's one of the issues or the concerns that we will talk about, the many concerns. Why is it not so? Okay. Why is not being used right now in Australia or other parts of the world? Only a few parts of the world have been using for direct potable use. For example, mainly in Africa, there's a lot of drought there, so they can have that direct potable reuse of wastewater. But in Australia, it's a big issue still at this point, and we are going to talk about that one as well. All right. So what are the drivers of this wastewater reuse in comparison with desalination? So we have cost-effective supply option for industry. The reason is instead of disposing that wastewater, we can reuse that one. So it's not a very high quality water, but still fit for purpose. All right. It's not the highest quality, but fit for purpose. It creates economic value. All right. So again, it comes to the disposal. Instead of just wasting it, we reuse it. So we are trying to, it's a circular economy, right? It's more of trying to reuse whatever is provided in nature rather than wasting it. It could reduce demand on other drinking water sources. So as I mentioned before, more than around 70% is used for agriculture. Now imagine if we use a drinking water for watering or irrigation, that's a lot of ways of drinking quality water, right? So instead of using that drinking quality water, why not use this wastewater, treated wastewater, all right? So it can reduce that demand for that drinking water, all right? Because we have a lot of demand for agriculture. So we can use this kind of treated wastewater rather than the drinking water quality. And also it can reduce wastewater treatment pollutant loads to natural waterways. So I mentioned earlier, more than around 80% around the world, especially underdeveloped countries, developing countries, some developing countries, they are just disposing this wastewater directly to the receiving natural body of water. All right. But if you have a wastewater treatment plant, then instead of directly putting that into natural waterways, then you are still treating first. All right. And then you can dispose a treated water already at a level that is not toxic to the receiving water. So the pollutant of that treated or the disposed water to the receiving water is much less. So the pollutant load is much less. That's why we are also saving the natural waterways because of reduced pollutant loads. Of course, it can improve environmental flows, definitely, because we're not directly disposing whatever loads that we have onto directly to the natural water. So it's cleaner water that is disposed to the natural environment, so we can proceed with normal environmental flows. Increase amenity and value for irrigation of homes and sports fields. So a lot of sustainability aspects. So the sustainability is a very, very trend word right now for everyone. It's not only a word, it's something, a lifestyle. All right. So it can also increase the value of a specific place if you are using some wastewater reuse facility. For example, in Sydney Olympic Park, we have some facility there that also increases, the overall amenity value of that specific place. It can also provide recreational areas because normally, it could be some place that people can go and take pictures and show some technology of the process there. So it could be a recreational area as well, and also a general community support for the triple R's, the reduce, reuse, and recycle concept, which is a sustainability concept. So there are so many very good drivers for wastewater reuse. So it's very good, right? It's very, very good. And I think everybody understands the value of that. But why is it not fully uptaken? Why is it not, fully, used by many of the many cities and around the world? Why? All right. So that's a question that we are going to answer a bit and understand why. All right. So these are the factors to consider for wastewater reuse or water reuse. Timely move towards the public. All right. What is your motivation? So the time is very important, right? You don't want to go to the public and say, okay, we want to build a wastewater treatment plant for potable, for drinking water purposes, if during that time there's a lot of rain. If during that time there's a lot of water supply, right? It means that the public will not feel that motivation, will not feel the need of that specific time, right? So you have to have the timing as well. The level of stress which is related with this one. If it's really drought, If there's no other ways of augmenting the water supply, then most likely people will consider this one, right? So you have to consider that one, as well as special considerations, community attitudes like branding. How do you present the water, that water? I will talk to you later on about the branding in Singapore, for example. So Singapore is using an indirect potable reuse, so they're indirectly, but they're using a wastewater for that. And that wastewater, treated wastewater, they branded it as new water. So the name is new water. So when people see that branding, when they say that in a bottle with the word new water, so instead of feeling some sort of, a different perception that, not knowing is from wastewater, then people will say likely, oh, I can drink this one because the new water does not say anything about wastewater. All right, so it's the quality is there. It's a good, the taste is just a natural taste. So everything is okay. And the name does not trigger a bit of, a sort of a yuck factor, for example. So this branding is very important as well. Public awareness also, we have to make sure that the public is actually understanding of the process and also make some proof that the process works. So you need to inform the public and let them understand, okay, this process is good. We have some proof. We have many proof around the world that we can use this one to produce good quality of water. Community acceptance is very, very good. It should be once the start, when you start a project, if you want to build a wastewater treatment plant, which is related to your task one, you have to be genuine. You have to be true from the start. You have to be, you have to be, open up. You have to be, you have to deal with them, whatever plan you have for the whole project. Do not hide something from them that will also create distrust later part if they will not be able to know the truth later on. So you have to be genuine in terms of your interaction with the people. And we will talk more of this today. And the variety of end uses available for recycled water. So different water quality. It depends. So if, for example, a community has only, depending on the use and how much you are going to use in your community. So you can also have various treatment processes with various quality of water. So the highest quality in this case for us for human consumption is the one for drinking. The rest, the cleaning and for washing, are also lower quality. We don't need it to be super clean or super high quality because it's not going towards our body, inside our body. So it could also a critical factor on what is your end use. And the cost is also a big factor now, especially these days that a lot are suffering from economic problems. So cost will also be a big consideration, okay, of the overall consideration of this wastewater reuse plant or process. Okay, just a bit of perception of what do you think about these images here, in order for us to understand what the community will think. So what do you think about these images here? Let me start with Paige. Paige, what do you think about these images here?
I don't think anything looks appetizing.
All right. Okay. Do you think these are all food, by the way? These are real food. Do you think they're not appetizing, but they're still able to possibly eat them?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like consumable. I guess that's what like wastewater is. It's like that's your first thought. It kind of looks like it sounds not appetizing.
You're right. So the thing is, yes, you're right with that one. So I think most of the people, when you look at something like this, although we know that it's food, although we know that it's clean, it is safe because it's been served in restaurants, for example, and many people are eating that. The thing is, we always have the perception. We always relate whatever we see as an image to what we know personally, right? So yeah, of course, we are very familiar with all of these things. So we think there's always that at the back of the mind, it's dirty, all right? Although we know that it's clean, but we have always that image and perception that it's dirty. The same thing is happening for wastewater. All right. So this is what we call as the yuck factor. So it's a very big concern, and it's one of the major factors for the community acceptance of wastewater. For potable reuse for potable purposes. So the yuck factor is one of the biggest factors in the public perception. All right. So there are more concerns. Yes, I put it here. There are more concerns on recycled water compared to desalinated water. As I mentioned, the source is different, and there is that public perception of the yuck factor there. All right, I'll just, I think some of my students previously have already seen this one, but I'll just, how do I click this one? Okay, there's some problem with the video. That's fine. I'll just probably just share to you this video. Anyway, it's a short video about the yuck factor here. I'll try to see if we can do it later on. All right. So how about public perceptions? Can we really improve them? All right. Can we really do something to improve the public perception? Can we look at the case for example, Singapore? Although it's not a direct potable reuse, but still a good example. How are they able to overcome this sort of public perception coming from wastewater to drinking water? All right. So in fact, if you look at many of the articles, previously, even these days, they are shut down by public disgust. And I'll show you two cases later on. I will explain to you about why some projects did not push through, they fail because of the issue of community acceptance. That's why we are talking this stakeholder engagement today, because this is a very, very important aspect of any public engagement or public, projects. When you engage in any big projects or small project, you do some community engagement for this one. There's a question here. Would you drink treated sewage water? This is a trick question. You already are. So in fact, if we think about it, the water on Earth stays the same in terms of volume, and the amount of water for millions of years is the same. It's just a matter of the natural, the water cycle, right? Evaporation, condensation, and goes back. So mainly, the ground is also filtering out the water that we are coming to the ground. They filter out and then goes back to the groundwater, and some are put back to the freshwater, fresh streams, and then evaporate again. So in fact, whatever we do now, what water we are drinking now is in fact more or less recycled water in a way. So we are actually drinking that one, even from wastewater treatment plants. After they treat the water, they put it in a reservoir, or they put it in the natural environment for disposal, for example, but they are treated. So that natural environment, we are also getting the water from there, right? So in fact, it's a cycle already. We are doing that, but it's not easy for people to grasp that idea right away, especially if they only see the process as a very simple process, as a not really like the time element is considered. Because morally, in natural case, the time element is there. There's a time element. So we have to consider that one as the way they perceive things. The time element, the more time the treated water stays in the natural environment, people tend to feel that the water becomes cleaner through time. And then once we get the water for drinking purposes through treatment, then it's more accepting for people like that. But if the treated water stays in that environment very short time, and then directly treat, maybe some people may think, oh, it's not enough time for that, body of water to be treated naturally. All right. So the time element is also an important aspect to consider, probably for many people, especially those who have some ideas in terms of the process. All right. So yeah, that's why I post this kind of discussion. I'll probably just take maybe 2 or 3 opinions on this one. The successful implementation of any reuse projects hinge on public acceptance. So this is very important. They depend on the public acceptance. As a concept for water management, water reuse is indeed widely accepted by the Australian community and many parts of the world. but it's not ultimately assumed that any reuse projects will be readily accepted by the community. So although it is generally accepted, but if we do the project, we don't assume that it will be just accepted, you know? So there are many that have failed, projects overseas, and some projects in Australia have failed as well because of the public resistance, right? So they see the logic in recycled water, but we are mainly, not only they, but we are mainly reluctant to use it. So what are these factors that become a resistant behavior? Anyone who can give me some factors you think why people are quite resistant to this kind of thinking, that to especially for potable, for drinking purposes. If the government, if the council or Sydney Water will try to say, okay, we will build a plant, and then this plant, the wastewater treatment plant, is the main aim is to provide drinking water purposes, so from wastewater to drinking water. Why do you think the public will probably resist on that one, especially at these current times here? Let's see, Gabriela English. Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that people want to be environmentally conscious and contribute to being sustainable, but when it actually comes to having to do it, they might be grossed out, but they want people to think that they care.
All right. So from what I understand from you, I think you're very right on that one. We tend to show that we are really conscious of the environment, but I think we are morely on a short-term vision. We try to see it more like, if it affects me short-term directly, it's good. But if it's for a long-term, maybe there's a little bit more sacrifice to do that. So there are more of a reluctance of that sense, right? For a long-term purpose. But generally, people are more environmental conscious. But the part where they have to how to say, they have to sacrifice something is also not a welcome thinking for them as well. Okay, thank you, Gabriela. Any else? Henry Fuller.
Hey, yeah, I feel as though people are not really doing it at the moment because we do have like fresh new water available. But when it comes to the time when we really do need to start to do it, I reckon people will start to do it then.
Very good. Yes. So there, it now goes back to necessity. All right, the timing, the necessity. You're right with that one. If this one project will be probably proposed right now, especially what's going on right now, that we have a lot of rain, I don't think people will have that, you know, the feel that necessity to have this to push through, because we have a lot of water. So why not use what we have right now? So this also one of the contributing resistant behavior. There's more. Okay, there's more of that, and that's what we are going to discuss on the next part of this. So these are just some of the most common ones. Okay, I will not discuss everything today, not all the 10, maybe 5 only, just in the interest of time. But I will also, the rest of the explanations, I will make a pre-recorded video. I will provide that one online for some other parts that are included in today's session, in this morning session. So you will have some time to also review, but I will give some more of explanation of some of these, especially the first 5 probably, okay? So we'll go to that one. Okay, that's the next slide that I will show you. Any questions so far? Question, clarification? All right, good, okay. So let me just go to the next one. All right. Okay, that took 1 hour. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so these are now the factors, and I think some of you have already mentioned some of the factors. So let's just dig deeper, a little bit deeper, why people are trying to resist, especially if we are talking about wastewater to potable reuse. Mainly for non-potable, we are doing that now. So non-potable is not a very big issue, because even in Australia, we are doing some of the non-potable purposes like washing or the, how to say, cleaning, irrigation. So this is not a big issue on that one, but the main issue is more of the potable part, because this potable is related to health, right? We're ingesting it. All right, so the first factor, and the main one that I mentioned already, is disgust factor or yuck factor, okay? So yeah, you think about water that is like this. Do you drink water like this? No, right? So when you drink water, the main thing that comes to your mind is there's a lot of bacteria there. It will make me sick, and it's not good for my health. Definitely, maybe it could possibly led to my death, for example, right? Because a lot of pollutants there. So it's a lot of very polluted water, so it's contaminated. So anything that has something that has been in contact with something unpleasant, all right? So even if you are eating, probably, right? If you're eating something and then something, a fly or something that comes to your food, and then you think that the fly comes from somewhere unpleasant or some dirty, then you don't want to really touch that part already, because there's a yuck factor there. You feel that that part is already contaminated, which is mainly true. If there are some parts there that has been there and it came from a very dirty place, it could be contaminated. So that one, you have that thinking right away that is contagious and it could be contaminated. The same way, especially with this one, if you think that the wastewater is coming from your toilet, I don't think anybody would like to drink that one. Of course, you can see from here, a very dirty water, and then it becomes clear water. But even though looking at this, looks like very normal water. It's very like, oh, this is good water. It looks fresh, normal, but you still would probably believe that it's clean or it's safe, right? Because some of the bacteria we cannot see by eyes, right? So maybe there's still at the back of your head, oh, this is not yet clean at all because it came from here. So I don't really fully believe the technology probably. So this will still be a big doubt. So that's one of the main reasons or perhaps the main reason for many of these resistance to wastewater, to drinking water. So this is a psychological barrier, which is very, very normal. Okay, this is a psychological barrier, and we cannot do much about it unless we do something like staging, for example, or making sure that we provide the proof of the quality of this water. We're probably, of course, there are other factors like the necessity, the timing, and everything. So, and also the precise wording or the branding. Okay, so you can see recycled versus repurified. So what comes to mind here? What comes to mind? Is a recycled a better word, or is a repurified a better word? Just from these two words, okay? We will not use treated wastewater because the word wastewater is there. But let's say recycled and repurified. Which one is a better effect on you? Which one would you probably, be more amenable or more, accepting? Jonathan, what do you think between the two? Jonathan Scott? Yeah.
Hey, repurified.
You purified, why?
Because recycled is saying that it's been, previously waste, and repurified means it's now become pure again, something like that.
Very good. Yes, you're right. Because it means when you say repurified, so does the source of that is already pure water, right? It's already pure water, purified water. So it means is just remake it pure again. So there's that sense of, just a way of words of the key terms, of the terms, but the effect would be a bit different. It could be a different way of thinking from people. New water has been used in Singapore. So the word new, all right? So they never use anything about wastewater. They've never mentioned about wastewater. They never mentioned about anything dirty that could, there's a connotation of some kind of contamination or dirty. So new water, I think, is a genius way of really making sure that what people will be accepting of the water of what they have. This is only one of the ways in their approach. There are, of course, some solid ways as well. I will explain to you later why people from there are more accepting. All right. There's also a perception of risk. Definitely, it's very related to this one. All right. There's a perception of risk. Now, this perception of risk is more, how to say, there's a higher concern, especially for parents. All right. Parents, we have small children, we have infants, for example, or toddlers. We are very, very concerned of the health and well-being of our kids, right? So especially for mothers, we need to make sure whatever we give will have a safe and healthy for that, for our kids. So there's a vocal concern about waste on children because it's true. It's true that wastewater has a lot of bacteria, definitely. Even wastewater could have a lot of heavy metals, a lot of different impurities inside. All right. How are you going to convince the mothers that all of these impurities are gone now, are all gone based on the process that you are trying to present? Okay, the product quality of the water. So at the back of the mind, that perception risk is very, very high. All right. And you need to find a way how to convince the mothers, especially, not only the mothers, but mainly the mothers, because of the, more concern about the children's health and safety. All right. So there's a lack of knowledge and uncertainty with regards to long-term effects that people fear. In fact, it's still true. All right. If you are not well or familiar about the process, if you are not familiar about the quality of the produced water or the product water, if you are not, if you don't believe about the efficiency and the effectiveness of the process itself, then there always be that uncertainty. Okay, there's always that uncertainty for long-term effect. All right, so we need to overcome this one, or people need to overcome this one by following some engagement strategies that could also help out in their decision making, especially for targeted ones for mothers and for other people. Okay. One way as a way of branding is also probably using the star system, right? We always see this one now in many of our many of the products that we have now. If you go to the TV, for example, energy rating. So there are many stars, right? The more stars, the better, right? 5 stars, 6 stars, the best. So it's very energy efficient. You can see in your fridge, your washing machines, other things. There's a lot of star system, star rating. You can also do that in your water, okay? So 0 star is basically wastewater. It's basically very dirty water. Then 1 star effluent, for example, is a screen 1. Of course, it's not yet clean, but some parts, the big particles, impurities have been removed. 2 star, some biodegradable organic material has been reduced, maybe disinfected. Then 3 star. As you go along, you can see, for example, of a 5 star drinking water. All right, so you could possibly put in your label as a 5 star drinking water. So it means it's a very, very clean water, and it can be used safely, and it's also good for health. And then there's a 6 star even, purer than drinking water. Normally, these are water that are used for specific purposes like kidney dialysis, some semiconductors processes, for example, that they need very, very high quality water without really any impurities, very, very pure water. But of course, it's not good for the health. So we don't go this one for drinking water because we need some minerals anyway. So we have to provide some minerals. But this one is more of the highest, without any impurities inside. So this star system would also be a good, way to generate public interest, and show the branding as well for specific quality of water. So I have already mentioned this one about branding. Terms range from recycled wastewater, treated sewage. So you have your term here. So wastewater is there. So you probably need to really remove anything that connote any dirty thing. Wastewater, maybe sewage is quite dirty in the sense. Purified recycled water, pure water, or 6 star water, and many others, or 5 star water. So it really depends on what kind of branding you may do. Okay, so that's branding part is also one way of overcoming or trying to convince people for the acceptance, making the higher acceptance for this product from wastewater. Okay, the other one, specific use of recycled water. It really depends, as I mentioned to you, what we are currently doing in Sydney, in many parts of the world, are non-potable reuse. So it means that we are already doing some treatment, wastewater treatment, but it's for outside the body experience. So it means anything that is going outside or not near our body, more or less people are more accepting, right? So anything for washing, for toilet flushing, or even some cleaning, everything like this is more or less firefighting. These are quite, generally accepted because it's outside our body, it's away from our body. But anything that is going to be near our body or direct consumption or ingestion, right? That's where people are very, very, resistant. All right, they're very hesitant to do that. So direct human food crops, for example, if there are some food crops that you water with a treated wastewater, and that food crop will be directly eaten, okay, directly eaten later on. So there's a connotation that, oh, the water used for that food crop is from wastewater. So maybe when I eat that food crop, there's also some impurities there. So that would be a little bit of hesitancy there when eating that kind of food, right? Or we use the food for washing dishes, for example, that need to be ingested later on. That could also make a connotation for some people that they don't want to go near that particular dish if the treated wastewater was actually used for that one. But generally, it's accepted except for drinking purposes. So the ultimate one is the drinking purpose. So if your specific use of recycled water is for drinking, that's the highest level of resistance in terms of thinking of the ultimate, end use of that particular water. So the use of water will also affect the way community accepts or not on that particular product water. So this is an old survey. It's an old survey. I think it's very 2006, but I think it's still very true until this day. This is the mean opposition percentages towards particular uses of recycled water. Okay, opposition, those who oppose. So the first one is food preparation in restaurants. In fact, it's higher, even higher than drinking. It should be similar, but 53, 57 is very not very far. So this two has the highest opposition. As I mentioned, anything that is related to ingestion, related to our body is resistant. Most people are resistant. The least one is this one: construction, road construction, air conditioning industries, and firefighting. So these are far from our body. They don't really connect with us. They don't touch our body. So it's fine for most of the people on that. So there's along the way, there's more of this here, but these are the opposite parts of this opposition. Okay, so this is least opposed. This is highly opposed. Anything that has to do with our body. Also, issue of choice, and I think who's that guy who Joseph I think mentioned about this one a while ago about the issue of choice. All right, the timing or the necessity of that, the treated wastewater for drinking purposes. All right, so for any location that are very prone for drought. All right, for very prone for drought, and which happened to Australia before, which happened a few times already, but it will come back. It's a cycle. But in the latest one was in early 2000s. All right, so we had that millennium drought. There's a big drought, less rain. So that time, people has less options. All right. So if you take there was a survey for that during that time, there's less options. There was no desalination plant in Sydney at that time yet. It was still being built. That's the reason it was built, because to provide additional option. And so there was a guess of a survey. The dam levels at that time, before around 2000 until 2002, are quite high. So it's more than 70%, 80% dam level. So it's very, very stable. It's very good. So there's a lot of water going on there, a lot of distribution of water. Then it suddenly dropped because of the drought, because there was no rain at all for many years. So from here, it went down and down and down. You can see from here, right? So if you look at the red line and the green line here, the green dots. So the red one is favor of recycled water for drinking. All right. favor of recycled water for drinking. The green is favor of recycled water for drinking. These are two different surveys. All right, so basically for drinking purposes. If you look at here, the favor, the amount, the people, the number of people that are favor of drinking water during this time, wherein there's a lot of water in the dam, is very low. It's quite low. They're low. But if you look at the same thing, it's the same happened to the other survey here. It's quite low. So people are rejecting the idea, okay, we don't need that wastewater to drinking water because we have a lot of water. But then again, it started to go down and drought came in. Then they made another survey. So what happened? Completely different answers. All right, you can see the answer is different now. You can see that it has increased. So the more people are now more accepting. The reason, choice. All right, the issue of choice. They don't have at that time. It's a necessity already. We need water in our lives, so the choice will be presented. There's no more choice options presented, so they are more accepting now. So that's why for this, no, good thing is it has the dam level also started to increase. All right, rain came, even though desalination plant was already constructed, but rain came. A lot of rain came. So suddenly, and within a few years, the dam level also rose up even higher to compare to this level here. So now more water are presented to our people, to Australia, and then of course this issue now is also gone because there's no more need, there's no more necessity at that time to further make an augmentation of the water from wastewater sources. All right, so the issue of choice is also a big factor. And if you go to Africa, some major parts in Africa, they don't have any choice. They don't have any water. So that's why some of the parts of Africa are using wastewater for potable purposes because of the necessity. What options do they have? They don't have the capacity for desalination as well. So wastewater would be the main option for them, and which is a big option because people really have a lot of wastewater anyway. Then we can reuse that one. Until now, they're using some parts of the Africa for so many years now. Some parts, some other countries are also slowly using, but not really entirely, completely widely accepted yet, even in Australia. And that's one of the main issues or the main topic that you are supposed to work on in your task one, which I will need to explain later on at the end of this lecture. All right, so that's one of the another issue, and the last issue, the other issue is cost. I think some of you already heard that one about the cost. People may try to expect to pay less for reclaimed water or for reused water, recycled water, because thinking that the source is dirty source. Right, so the source is dirty, so maybe the end product should be cheaper because anyway it's coming from a dirty or lower quality of water, so they expected that the product water is also water quality. But of course it's not true because the quality of that water based on the technology that we have, like if we use some MBR, for example, with reverse osmosis, we could produce a really high quality water that is even at par of the normal quality of water, even higher than the standards that we have. So it's very high quality of water. So the thinking of it's a lower water quality is wrong, but we need to convince people about that as well. So this is an issue of trying to make sure that there's a proof of that. You have a proof. Yeah, researchers, engineers probably, or scientists will have easier understanding, maybe easier compared to the layman, to the common people, because people in the technology side, people working in the technology side is more probably adept. For example, right now we are talking about this, students, engineers. So we're talking about technology, about this issue. So you have more information. But in comparison to others who have no idea about this, there's a lesser probability for them to accept right away because of the small information or low quality of information that they are getting. All right, so also for desalination, maybe they are not much accepting of desalination because we still have water and desalination cost is high. So instead of using or operating the desalination plant, which entails a lot of cost, why not use that expense, the expenses that you're supposed to do or use for desalination plant, why not use it for other purposes, especially for healthcare? So some people think that way, which is very valid. That's true, very valid, because there are many years, for example, from 2012 for the later part around 3 years ago, for example, until 3 years ago, our desalination plant, for example, in Sydney was not really operating, was not really producing a single drop of water. They are just on standby mode because during that time we didn't need the augmentation from desalination plant because we have a lot of water, we had a lot of rain. So that's why desalination has been there, but on a standby mode. But when you say not operating, not exactly not operating, because you still have to spend money on that. You still have to have maintenance. You need to maintain the membranes. You want to maintain the pipes not to be corroded. So there are still some maintenance operation, but not producing the actual water. So every year during that time, we are spending millions of dollars for maintenance only without any producing of water. So that's an issue. It was a big issue before, actually, if we are supposed to shut down completely the desalination plant or just do it as maintaining year after year, because that is a water security, for long-term purposes. If drought comes back again, at least we have desalination plant that can augment our water needs. So these are two different issues that also came about later on. But yeah, you may have a different opinion on that one. Each person has different opinion. That's why the stakeholder engagement is so important, because each person will have a different take. And you need to consolidate this take. Maybe not fully 100% agree, but at least people will have the same direction, that we go this way or we go this way. Yeah. So that's why the stakeholder engagement is so important in this aspect. All right, in summary, the rest of the other factors I will just give you as a recorded video. But in summary, the degree of human contact, as long as it's minimal, then it's better or higher acceptance. The health, to make sure that the quality of water is high without any bacteria, without any microorganisms, is clear, and it can be protected for our health, then we can be possibly accepted. The environment as well is protected. We are not producing some treated water that when we discharge will have an effect or toxic effect on the environment. As long as we can make sure about that, then probably people, especially those environmentally conscious people, are more likely to accept such project. Water conservation, the cost of treatment is not too high. It's something that is manageable, that's fine. Perception of wastewater as a source of reclaimed water is minimal. The branding comes in, the perception side, So we don't mention too much about wastewater or dirty water, then that would be would help in alleviating that fear or alleviating that psychological barrier. Awareness of water supply problems. All right, so probably we'll need some historical story about what happens before, during drought, what to expect in the future. We need to make people understand in a long-term basis, not on a short-term. If they if we only present something that is short-term, like for example, in the next 3 years, people will not feel that way, because they will probably just think, okay, rain will come. In the last few years, rain came. So I think there's no problem for that. So that's their thinking. They're not thinking that later on, when our population goes up, and then the drought comes back, which will most possibly will come back again, then what shall we do during that time? Are we going to start during that time, or is it better to start earlier so we can prepare for that time? So these are the things that need to be understood by people, rather than we are all gonna be surprised. Suddenly there's drought and we don't have any alternative water sources, right? So that's a big thing that needs to be considered. The role of reclaimed water in the overall water supply scheme. I think Singapore is a very good example of this one. They felt the necessity of that. They know the necessity of having a water security, because right now they're importing water from Malaysia as their source of many parts, or a big part of that water distribution in Singapore is from Malaysia as a source. So in the long term, they're looking at making it fully secured in terms of water. So they want to be 100%, able to provide water on their own. So that's why they're building some wastewater treatment plants, some desalination plants. They are leaders in membrane industry, in membrane processes as well. So these are the things that they're doing because they are thinking long term, and people have that information. So they are very supportive of that because they understand the necessity. They understand their long-term goals. So we need to also make sure they understand the role of that water in the overall matrix, the overall distribution of that in the water supply scheme in a specific place or country. Perception of water quality is high. Yeah, and what do we do with this? How do we make sure that the perceived quality is high? Then we need to prove, right? We need to prove. And also the confidence in local management of public utilities and technology is high. So this now is on trust, right? Building that trust, so people will trust you for a long term. And so we need to connect with people, and this is where community engagement is so important, so that we can build the human side and connect with the technology side, and then you can move on to sustain that one for a long term. All right. So these are the things that we are probably dig deeper when we go towards the stakeholder engagement part. Okay. Any question or any clarification? I would like to hear anything from you, just to rest a little bit of my voice. Any question, clarification? Okay, nothing, right? Good. I would assume that so far it's all clear so far. And anyway, you have the chance to review the recorded video anyway later on. So if ever you have questions along the way, later on, you may always contact me or Professor Sean or other Dr. Poncho later on for questions. Okay, great. So if there's no question for that, I can move on to the next one. Before I do that, I would probably ask for a 5-minute break just to have a rest for a while for my to drink water. Okay, just a 5 minutes break, and then I'll come back soon. All right, thank you. I'll just come back soon. All right, I'm back here. Can you hear me, everyone? Can you
Yes,
just-
yes.
Thank you. Great. All right. So we are now at the final slides that I'm going to talk about stakeholder engagement. And this one is very important because this is where most of your assignments or the task one will be based on. So I'll just probably give an overview a bit of your task one so you can relate it with the various parts that we're going to talk about. Professor Sean has already mentioned to you a brief overview yesterday, probably on what to expect in the task one. So so the task one is based on let's just figure it out. Where is it? Okay, we have scenario before, yeah. This is a given scenario for all the tasks that you have. So these are all given scenario. So the scope of work, basically, you try to assume yourself, or you are employed by Sydney Water, for example, as a consultant for that. You specialization on strategic planning and design of a water supply treatment infrastructure. So you are supposed to start a project on regards to wastewater treatment. But in this case, I would like to be specific. The task one is for you to work on the planning for a potable reuse. All right, from a wastewater to potable reuse in Sydney. Okay, so potable is the main concern because non-potable is generally accepted. So we like to see what you think about having that potable reuse part. So you are assuming yourself as a consultant for that. All right. So this report, or community engagement report, will involve a number of things in terms of the information that are required. You need to give a brief overview. Okay, this one. All right, here. So in this task, right? So this part here, the background part, is more of giving an overall view or overview about the water situation in Sydney, and in particular in Sydney, Australia in general, in particular in Sydney. You can base this on the recent reports in the Metropolitan Sydney report, for example, or some other reports that you can see online. What are the initiatives that we are doing right now? What are the main sources, main sources of water to ensure our water security is protected or is sustained for Sydney, for example. And then I want you to work on the literature review on direct potable reuse technology. So there are some other parts in the world that are using this one. So try to get those parts of the world. So how do you do that? You do a research. All right. So you go for a literature review, and I might make another video later on. I don't want to take this time for that. How to search for some of the where to search, like Google Scholar or some other of the publishers later on, that you may be able to see some peer-reviewed journal articles or some other reports. That's, you can see which part of the world are using direct potable reuse. One example should be in Africa, definitely one of that. There could be new ones that we don't know yet that are being reported recently. So please try to find this, identify the places, and also what kind of technologies they are working in. So it's just a general overview of that. So if you look at this guide, there are specific marks that are allotted for each of this section here. So please follow this guide for the various sections. Now, I want you to work on this one now in this part, the next three sections. Situational analysis, which we are going to discuss now. This is about SWOT analysis, the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you are going to make a project for a direct potable reuse, then try to do a SWOT analysis. What are these various quadrants here, the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Before you start a project, you need to do this so you will be able to understand how to proceed. And you have also some inclination or some sort of knowing ahead, what to expect along the way, some problems, for example, and then and some opportunities on that. Discuss each point in the analysis including the public perception. So definitely there will be some public opposition. Maybe try to see what are the opportunities there to improve that perception. And then stakeholder analysis as well. Stakeholder analysis is on identifying who are the stakeholders, right? If you're putting in Sydney, which part in Sydney, who are the direct stakeholders who are going to be affected indirectly or directly. So you have to identify them, which I will explain anyway. I'm just giving you an overview now so that you can connect, you can relate the sections that I'm going to talk about later on, their roles and how they will affect the project. All right, so this is very important aspect for stakeholder engagement, analyzing who will be affected directly or who will be affected more and who will have the influence and who are just, bystanders, for example. And you can identify the major stakeholders and what are their roles, all right? And then the next one would be on how do you engage them? What are your strategies, right? Depending on the kind of stakeholder that you have, you will have different strategies, all right? If you are looking at mothers, what will your strategy? If you are looking at students, what will be your strategy? So these are various things that we can discuss later on as we go along with our lecture. So this is mainly, again, direct potable reuse, all right? Describe the engagement activities. It could be some surveys, it could be information days or dissemination, maybe some cards or some online thing, media, for example. There's a lot of different various approaches that you can do for this, and I can give you an example later on. And of course, some reflection and conclusion, and then of course the rest of the document properties. Okay, just a brief overview of that, so we can move on with our different sections for that. How do you include all of those things inside? Okay, let's start. Look, the thing is, when we do some projects, big, small projects, the main problem in many years ago, especially when they are not thinking about sustainability, is that people think it's very unilateral decision making. Big companies, some governments before were always thinking that whatever I say to the people, they will do, they will accept it. They don't care. I have the money, I have the power. They do it, let's do it, and then that should be it. So this very one line is very unilateral. What is missing there in that kind of thinking is that, in fact, the end user, in fact, that will be very much affected are those in the community, right? They are the ones who will mostly use or drink that water or some other projects, for example. And do you need to involve them in the early stage, even before the start of any planning process, so that you will have increased that opportunity or increase the chances of fully accepted by the community, and it can have a long-term, operation. It will not have some problems along the way. Okay, problems will be there, but it will not big problems along the way. So this license, the concept of the social license to operate is very, very important. This social license to operate, SLO. So if you can see, it's a license. So you have a driver's license or special driver's license. So you are given that permission, yeah? You have given that right to drive because of that license, right? Similarly, the social license is like that. You're giving that permission. However, if you comparison with a driver's license, you can see a physical card. You can see a physical license like a paper. This social license is more like a concept. It's not a physical certificate. It's not a physical license. It's more of the feeling or the level of ongoing acceptance, you can see here, or approval by the community. Definitely, even without the physical form, which you cannot really get, maybe there's a process now to do that, but it's not yet fully, physical form. Companies or organizations will be able to really know if you have a license to operate, because there are many instances, or there are many symptoms or indicators about that. Why you will know if you have a social license to operate. Number one, an example of that is protest. If people are protesting in the streets and it's going to continuously protesting and more people are gathering, definitely you don't have that social license to operate yet, because people are not agreeing with you. All right, so you will feel that one. if you feel that people are trying to, support you in your group, in your process, you have them discussion and it's part of the planning process. There's a decision making that is supported by community opinion, then probably you will have that sort of license. All right, not necessarily the full license to as a trust, but there are many levels of that license. So it is just a concept related to sustainability. As I mentioned later, this social license to operate is related to sustainability. For a long term, how to sustain that one for a long term? People and technology, for example. So the people, the triple bottom line, it's very used in business or economics, people, profits, and planet. So you can see here people. This is important. You don't only talk about economics or money. You don't talk only about environment, but you talk about the human resource, the people there. There's a human aspect for everything. Even how good an engineer you are, even how good the technology is, you invented something that can really have a very high quality water, and then you just suddenly you give that one to the people without explaining how to use it or without explaining how the quality is. Definitely, most of the people who don't understand this will say, "Okay, I don't believe you. Who are you that I will believe?" Okay, so there's no such thing of a technology only. You have that human aspect of that, so which is the social aspect, which is the social license to operate. So you need to get this one before anything else. You need to have that one in your project. So if you don't do that, there's definitely a rejection, a lot of protest. And then if you started going another level, so you are getting that legitimacy of the project, but you are not yet safe. Still, people are trying to understand things about what exactly is it about the project, how it will benefit them, how it will benefit the environment, how it will also, be safe for everyone. Then you establish that one. So there's slowly accepting that one, but you have to establish your credibility. It's not only about being in power. It's not only being the person with a lot of decision making. It's not. You need to let people understand you and let also, show your history, like you're credible enough that they can actually trust you. They can believe in you, that you're able to do what you have discussed to do. And it will be for a long term and for the betterment of everyone. So it's something like there's an approval stage, and the long-term one is for trust, So if you establish the trust in the community, then that's where you really, move along really smoothly in your projects, because you gain the trust. You establish a good amount and quality time and quantity time as well for discussing with each other, and you build that connection with the community, so they know you are for them. They know that your plan is for the betterment of everyone, and you have included whatever opinion or discussions coming from their side. All right, so these are the 3 levels of that. But indicators of social license, how will you know if you have the license to operate? Levels of license here, the first one, the red one, is definitely, you will definitely know. People will be on the streets. People will be, going against your project. So it's gonna be shutdowns and everything. So you don't have that license at all. If people are always every day going against you, protesting and everything like that, the social license is not given yet. You may have failed already at the start because you did not do what it's supposed to do. And this has happened already in many of the projects. And I will give you an example what happened in Australia as well before, in a water reuse scheme before, many years ago, that also failed just because they failed to do the engagement at the early stage. Acceptance, tolerance, slowly accepting, but still some questions are there, Skip monitoring and everything. They are not fully trusting you. And then you go towards approval. And then the last one would be psychological identification, or the full trust and acceptance from the community. And this is where the last part would be the ideal case for most of the projects, because in this way you will have a more sustainable operation in the long term. So how to get on this level? Then we need to follow some of the strategies at the earliest stage of the project. All right, so some factors towards trust and acceptance, impacts on social infrastructure. So what does it mean for impacts on social infrastructure? let me, Milan, do you have any idea? Okay, just to make sure that students, please, again, just feel safe to talk. Okay, anything you say is good as long as you interact with each other. I think it's good giving out opinions, so feel safe in this space. Milan? Okay, Milan, do you have an idea? What does it mean by impacts on social infrastructure?
Sorry, that could be the impact that the license would make on the communities, like yep.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, this is not about really on the license itself. It's more on the projects. So if you have, for example, you have potable reuse projects. So it's a wastewater treatment plant for potable reuse. So you want to establish that one in particular community. So basically, what it will be the impacts on social infrastructure. One of the things maybe I want to ask, if there's a wastewater treatment plant, what comes to mind? So what comes to mind is that the smell, right? What will happen to our community? Will there be a lot of smell? If there's no smell at all, what's the odor like? So most of the people would say, oh, there will be very smelly. If you put it in my community, what will happen to our neighborhood? It will be smelly, and then no people will come. No, probably the businesses will probably die. So you have to convince the people, what is your plan? So there will be odor protection, control, for example, some you need some a plant that has some covers, for example. What will be the impact on playgrounds? Like the mothers would ask, yeah, we need some playgrounds for our kids. If there is some wastewater treatment plant, I mean, nobody will try to play nearby playground for that, because it will affect our kids' health. So these are some of the things that builds trust if you're able to convince people what are the plans, what are the concerns, and incorporate together. So infrastructure is only one that we need to very, very clear about. Thank you, Milan. Contact quantity. Contact quantity is on the number of times you meet with the stakeholders. How often do you meet with them? Of course, you don't want to meet every day. You don't want to meet almost every week, because there's also fatigue. You don't want to over meet, because over meeting also is like people will not probably believe you anymore because they're too tired to always meeting without any much of improvement. So as long as you maintain a consistent number of contact with a specific community at the earliest start, then that would be a great way to show your to build the trust. Yeah, you have to build that trust, because you are contact. It means that you are always listening to them, but not over listening, not over quantity. Okay, so do not put a fatigue on people as well. Do not always call them and ask them. No, it's not a good way as well. But however, the contact quality is more important. Quantity is important. You don't very little or small amount of number of engagement is not good, but the quality of that engagement is also so important. So what does it mean by contact quality? Contact quality. Amit Shishir. What do you understand about contact quality, the degree or extent of that quality? What sort of examples can you give about that?
I have actually through my contact quality. I'm not.
No worries. Don't worry. It's okay. No worries. Yeah, I can explain that one. No worries about that, Amir. I think it's just a good idea to have think about it later on, and then you will probably realize something about what does it mean with contact quality. So thank you, Amit. No problem. Anyone who wants to have a share, or what do you think about that, and give an example, please? A volunteer would be good. Lachlan?
Maybe
okay, no oh yeah, somebody's talking.
maybe
Yeah,
the degree of the acceptance
the degree of what?
of acceptance.
Acceptance. So the degree
Yes.
of acceptance. Yes. In a way you are right, because we are going towards that one. Can you give example? What do you mean by the quality? The quantity is easy because it's the number, but the quality, what does it mean? if we want to improve the degree or extent of that quality? Sorry.
It's it's probably the level of contact pollutant like contaminant that is present in the wastewater. For example, like BOD5 and some other total suspended solids, and you have COD and this and that. Yep.
All right. Okay. Yeah. That's an idea. That's a good idea. Definitely, you talk about that. You talk about that pollutant content. The quality here is more of pertaining to the project itself. When you are building the project, so the quality of that engagement, all right, based on the project. So you can definitely talk about the resulting quality of your wastewater or the product of water, but the quality here pertains mainly if you are really listening with the people, all right. So the quantity, you can just make a lot of number of calling seminars like that. But the quality means if their opinion, the opinion of the people or the suggestions of people are actually being considered. Yeah, it's a different thing that you do a lot of engagement, but you are not actually listening to them. You are not, listening and considering their opinion. You're always like doing this engagement, but at the end of the day, it's your own decision will come in. I mean, you can still decide without their own suggestion. The quality will change that one. You have to make sure that you incorporate whatever suggestions, not all, you have to meet somewhere, but at least they understand and they feel that you are true, that this engagement is real, because engagement will only be real if they are heard, if you listen to them. All right. So that's why the quality should be there. So it's important. It's just more of like feedback. For example, survey is SFS. Yeah. So we listen, we try to listen, and then we try to make some changes based on the feedback. The same thing. This one, you present some of your plan, they give some feedback, and then you try to incorporate whatever feedback for the improvement. So the quality of that is so important. And of course, procedural fairness. Again, procedural fairness is very, very related to that. The length of time, of course, the length of time, the quality will also talk about the length of time. Did you provide for each of the engagement? You don't want to hurry up. You want to make sure that they are given that opportunity to voice out. Then procedural fairness is on the process. So as I mentioned to you, there are two ways to do this: unilateral and then multi-directional, or I forgot the term, but multi-directional, in the sense that unilateral is just you decide, you do, you just do. All right. So without listening to others, which is the usual case before. But now the multi-directional, more or less, you plan, you discuss, go back to the plan, discuss again, go back again, discuss again. So it's always, going back and forth until such time you meet somewhere in between, and then you finalize together with the inputs of the community. All right. So you have to have that procedural fairness, and you have to be clear about it. What will you do with their suggestions? What will you do with their opinions? You have to be clear. You have to explicitly tell them. Yeah. Because that's the only way you build trust. If they have an inkling or any feel that you are lying, that trust can easily be broken, right? If they feel that this is not true, it's just a matter of showing face and then writing everything, and then you are not really putting them into action or incorporating them, then that's going to be a breach of trust, and that would be a bad thing for long term. Then you have to later on have that acceptance and approval. If they build the trust already, they know you, they trust you, they trust the technology, they trust the process, they know that you will this is for the betterment of everyone, then you can build that acceptance and approval. All right. So this is based on competence and integrity. All right. All right. So if only very, very high trust and there's no acceptance and approval, then it means that only trusting more of the technology rather than trusting the technology and the people, proposing this plan or the project. They have to also trust the people, both of the technology and the people, in order to build this full acceptance and approval. So you share your information as much as possible, be transparent at the start, be early, use the, how to say, include the stakeholders at the earliest part of the planning, okay? Before the planning, pre-planning. So you have to include them, share the responsibility, because if they have the shared ownership, you know, if you have that shared ownership, then you will most likely feel very responsible as well for the success of that project, right? Shared ownership, okay? There's basically shared ownership. Now, build meaningful relationship, through a meaningful relationship, and also in decision making, you have to be transparent. What did you do with their suggestions? What you did not do with other suggestions? What things that you have decided based on your own plan? You have to be very transparent so that people will know. And of course, people will not really push that all their suggestions will be followed. Of course, it's not the way it works, because it has to go both ways. Both the proponent and also the stakeholders need to be in the same direction, ultimately. All right, so these are the things that are main factors for that. Oh, where am I? Oh, here. Okay, right. So yeah, definitely there are some risks along the way. There will be risks in any project. So to reduce this risk, normally we situational analysis. So see, situational analysis is part of that, you know, of that task one now. So situational analysis. So this one is a tool. The SWOT analysis is basically a tool. So this is a SWOT, is SWOT, stands for S is strength, W is weakness, O is opportunity, and T is threat. All right. So you have a quadrant there. Usually you do like this, a quadrant with or something like this: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats, and you identify them. So this will be really a helpful tool or a way of addressing what are the things that you are lacking in your plan, in your project, for example, and then minimize whatever risk along the way, because you have identified them at the early stage. And then what are the advantages of taking all the opportunities as well as the strength of your project, so that you can, you know, you can plan out ahead of time. If there is something that will happen, you have some already planned actions, what to do. So this stage is at the preliminary stage. So the SWOT analysis, it can be used for this project. It can also be used for other activities that you have or other projects that you have. So you can always do that in anything. It's a tool, all right? It's a tool. So in this case, your project will be about potable reuse, right? Potable reuse. So what are the strengths for that? What are the usual strengths? What do you do well? What unique resources and what others see as strength? So for example, in this case, potable reuse, what are the main strengths? We have, for example, proven technology. Proven technology. We have a membrane-based technology that is tested. We have a reverse osmosis, for example, that can be used to a high degree to produce high water. And we have a lot of treatment trains, pre-treatments, even MBRs, and all the things that can be used along the way that has been proven to produce high quality water. So there's a tested technology. That's an example. The product quality of that water is quite high, meeting all the standards, like World WHO standards, for example, or maybe the our water standards in Australia, drinking water standards. So we have we're meeting this criteria. So these are the strengths, which you have this proven already. All right. Then you need to look at some of the weaknesses that you have. All right. Some of the weaknesses of this project, for example. Yeah, one of the big weaknesses probably at this point in time, without the necessity, is what will be your selling point? How are you going to convince people which area you need to focus on, so people, will really truly be convinced that we need a potable reuse plant at this time. All right. So you are not very clear at probably, so you need to define that one. You need to take the opportunity. What will be the opportunity in this area as well? Example of opportunity, the areas to develop, right? So probably in this area, there are quite a few competitors. So not many are doing this one anyway, mostly from governments, from councils, but not private organizations. Probably they're very small competitors at this point. And maybe there's an opportunity to also expand to other processes, or maybe your project, if you have your own product, for example, to present, like a new membrane that has a better performance, that can also be, less fouling, for example, less problems. There are some opportunity there to develop along the way. So these are some of the aspects. You may think of other things, all right, during the preparation of your task. And what are the threats? These are the things that could possibly hinder or stop your project. What are the various threats of this one? One of the examples that I will give you later on is on the case that happened in Toowoomba many years ago, that was failed wastewater treatment reuse scheme. So in that way, the threat was more of people having the first movers advantage. So they have some people that are negative of that project, people that are against any form of sewage to drinking water purposes. So anything that from wastewater to drinking purposes, they are very, very against. So they don't like it. They are producing a lot of media articles. They're producing a lot of negative press, saying that this treatment process will not work. This is very dangerous. So they started that early, very early, before the government was able to engage the community. These people, what we call as citizens, CADS, citizens against sewage, right? Drinking sewage. These are CADs. These are the people that suddenly give out all this information. So it's a threat to your potential project. It could happen also the same way in your proposal now, in our potable wastewater reuse in Sydney. There are many people here that would be against it. So make sure you know the threats, all right? The attitude of that specific community where your project will be located, also can be a threat. Whatever policies we have now, maybe the government will change. They will probably, a policy will say, okay, no wastewater to drinking purposes, only desalination. That could also be a big effect. Definitely, this could be a threat for your project. So identify these things, and and have an idea on how to deal with all the things. What can you do when having identified other activities or actions that you'll do once you have identified most of this situation, whatever situation it is for various quadrants here. All right, so that's for SWOT analysis, and that's scope under your, not that one, where is it? Let me just show you again so it's easy to follow. Yeah, it's part here, section 3, all right? So this is the part that you need to answer for that specific question in your task 1, right? So this is just an example, and I have more example of SWOT analysis at the end, right? This is a SWOT analysis on 2 cases. I will explain that one later on. Strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. So you can get an idea what sort of things are expected from each of these. This is SWOT analysis for Singapore part. So we can talk that one in a later part, so you have more examples. Now, after this SWOT analysis, you are now able to start and see, plan out how to engage your community, because you have identified most of these possible risks and some are the strength, and then you'll try to go ahead with the stakeholder engagement at the start of the planning stage. So basically, stakeholder engagement, I think from here, stakeholder engagement is basically from the name itself. Okay, from the name itself, and a stakeholder. What is stakeholder, by the way? What is a stakeholder? So this is could be a person, one person, an individual. It could be an organization as a whole. It could be a group of people together, just a group of people like a team or some other groups of people or a club, and mostly or a combination of this that has most likely have interest in the project or can be directly or indirectly affected by the outcome of that project. So if you look at a project like potable reuse, if you put in Sydney, and let's say, we put somewhere in CBD, just an example, of course, it's not real. In CBD, there's no space. But if you put that in somewhere in the CBD area, then who are the stakeholders there? All right. The direct one, probably the community around that will be affected, direct community around, right? The businesses could be affected because, of course, if it's in CBD, it's a hypothetical example, right? CBD has no space. So in some other areas, so you can think about who are the various stakeholders. Maybe universities that are around that university. Maybe UTS could be part of somewhere nearby, if for example. So there are various stakeholders that you need to engage. You need to get their opinion. You need to get going with a discussion to make sense of what they think, what they feel, and what, you know, if they are supportive or not. So these are the things that you need to establish. Look, you do this because even for small group projects, for example, in a small group projects in our university, you have a subject with a small group project. Each person will have a different way of working, right? So each person will have their own style, they have their own attitude, they have their own character, interest, and everything. So you need to work together. So it's more like engaging with each other as well towards a common goal. Otherwise, if you don't talk with each other, you will clash. It's the same way. It's just an analogy there, but it's the same way you do this for a bigger, you know, projects. And whatever projects, it's not about water-based project, all other projects. One example that I would probably say is what I have one project that I know back in the Philippines, a very big project, but just recently. But because during that time, during the proposal stage, it was not really, you know, there was not really exact stakeholder engagement. And so the project never even started because people are protesting. Also, it's still ongoing right now, but, you know, it has, you know, halted because of people are protesting because they don't understand exactly what's going on, because there was no talking, there was no discussion at all. It's just presented directly. So it's not the way to go in any project, because right now people are so important in every aspect of your establishing your project. So stakeholder engagement is the process of establishing this relationship, effective and productive. So the words are effective and productive, for a shared understanding of goals and shared commitments to change. All right. So there are various benefits there, and there are various reasons as well why we need to engage the community. Right now, basically, it's part of the policy. All right. Our policy now, whatever, if the policy is really, you know, supports this engagement, because we know, the government knows, the many organizations know that engagement is a priority. Also, aside from just establishing the project, is a priority interest, because this will make or break the project, right? So it will support the organization or the government's policy as well. Is this for ethical reason, right? Yes, why not? It should be ethical, right? If you are putting something that will affect the people or the people in that environment, you need to consult them, right? It's just not a matter of, you know, you accept it or not, I will build this one. No, it's just ethical. It's an ethics. You know, it's just part of respect as well. All right, so it's part of that reasoning, and definitely it can help improve the project outcome. Definitely, yeah. If people are supportive of you, even eventually, if they are very supportive of that project, eventually they can become like stewards. They can be the one that can actually help out in operating or making sure it's safe, that project holds for a long term, because they're having that sense of ownership of that project, because they are part of the planning stage and through the construction until the end. There's a feedback mechanism and they are part of that. So there's an ownership. So it will definitely increase the overall project outcome, okay? So shared ownership, there's a diversity of perspectives, because only then, when you do stakeholder engagement, you get all various perspectives from different parts or from different, stakeholders, right? Very, very different perspectives. Perspective from an old guy, perspective from a young guy, perspective from a mother, perspective from academic, perspective from politician, from researcher, from council people. So these are so many perspectives. They have their own goals, they have their own, interests. So you have to listen and discuss with each other. And then It could also lead to empowerment of the community, yeah, as a social capital. So it means what I'm saying is that if community is empowered, they will make sure that the project will succeed. They will make sure that the project will stay because they are empowered. They know they are part of that project. So they are empowerment there. And there's also cohesion. It means their unity between the project proponents or the people operating that one and the community or the stakeholders. All right, so what are the key principles of engagement? Yes, these are know your audience, definitely. You don't engage somebody you don't have any idea with, right? So you need to know who are the audience or the community that you're trying to engage. You understand what are their fears, what are their likes, what are they expecting, what are their current status. You need to understand, many parts of them so that you will also have, a preparation on how to respond and also a preparation on how to communicate because each person will have different way of accepting and delivering communication, right? Some people, for example, you also need to use diverse mechanisms. I jump here because it's very related with I will say. Diverse mechanisms means diverse in many different communities, right? For example, if that community, there's a lot of international people, right? And you go over there without knowing, going to that community and nobody speaks English, for example, or very little, how would you engage? So you don't have any preparation, right? So you have to know in that community if majority are international and with less probably communication capability or something like that, there are groups of people, then you need to be prepared. You need to have some translator or somebody who can speak the language and then prepared for that. So, and then use diverse mechanisms. This is very important, especially for people, how to deal with people who are engaged and people who are disengaged. So what I mean with that is that there are so many people, for example, if there's a project, some people are very engaged. They are very, how to say, emotional, and they're very, they give a lot of time to make sure that they are heard. Yeah, you can listen to them. So they talk a lot. They're very vocal and they make themselves available. When you call, they answer. And when you make a survey, they do. So these are quite engaged people because they want to make sure that whatever they say will have an effect on the overall planning of the project and also the actual establishment of that project. But there are so many people who are disengaged as well. I don't really care much about that project, it will go on or not, but at the same time there are people who are disengaged and say, I care a lot of this project, but I'm very lazy to attend any seminars. I'm very lazy to go to the workshops. The workshop is in the city. I'm living somewhere far. Even though I'm not living in the same area, I'm still affected because I probably work there or my wife works there or my child is staying there. So I'm still part of the stakeholder, but I'm too lazy to attend any workshop. So it means they are very disengaged. So how do you deal with that? You need to find another way to do that. So instead of just putting your workshop in a specific place where it is very far away from these people, why not go to their area? Okay, go to their area, talk with them, and make some special mechanism to engage with them. So you have to find a way and make a diverse, mechanism to various people, to various stakeholders. Diverse outreach pathways as well to maximize your reach, young versus old. So it's okay. So we have social media right now. We have Twitter, Facebook, even some Instagram, or so young people are very, very good at this. You can always make some this engagement on that one and show them some videos probably. Even sometimes they are using some TikTok as well to generate some interest and something like that. So there are various ways to do that. But if those are good for young people, the old people that are part of stakeholders may have no idea how to use it. May have no idea, they don't even have their accounts for that. So it's not always, so you have to be diversified in the way you work out your mechanism, right? So that's part of the process. That's part of the mechanism, the engagement activities that you're supposed to do in your task 1. Make sure that they are diversified as well. Frame the issue carefully. As I mentioned, the communication style, the way you use your words, the terms, and it's also the branding. How are you going to frame that one? The issue, for example, if you were long-term security, how are you going to frame that people will understand that what we are doing here is not only for the near future, it's not only for the current ones, but we are preparing for what will happen in the future. Maybe provide some examples from other countries, like for example, for one country, they don't have any problem with water at all, and then suddenly no more water, and then what they did, they have some problems again. They have a lot of problems with water distribution. So you don't want that to happen to our place, because eventually with climate change and some modeling, for example, it is expected that this some point in time drought will come back. What shall we do? So this kind of things, this kind of framing will help a lot in convincing people to work in this or to accept this kind of engagement. All right, so these are the how to say, the spectrum, participant spectrum, that the various stages of the kind of engagement, the impact which can impact the decision making. So this is based on International Association for Public Participation. The spectrum of inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. So going through here to the right means that the decision-making ability of the stakeholders increases. Okay, it increases. So informing is mainly from the word itself, informing. It's like more or less a one-way street. You're just giving information, giving details. You are just saying that this is what we shall do. But if you go towards consultation, then you are giving feedback, receiving the feedback. You may or may not use the feedback, but you are consulting. But involving means at a higher contribution now from the stakeholders. All right, there's a more contribution. You are involving them about the decisions will now include many of the consulted aspects from based on the consultation. So they are really much involved now. So the increase of participation is increasing. The level of participation is increasing, and then collaboration is the higher one, and the empowerment means the proponent is leaving the decision making to the community. Okay, if this is one will come in, so it means the community has more of the actual ownership now in terms of the overall operation, which will be more sustainable in the future. But we are aiming towards somewhere on this area where our project will have that good participation and collaboration between the project proponents or the people that are involved in the project, as well as the stakeholders. So we're trying to increase our level of participation and consultation, and this for decision making ability of that. All right. So these are the levels, and these are the types or the quality of engagement, which is the quality is more important over the quantity. Now, stakeholder analysis, which is again, this is now this next stage of your assessment. So stakeholder analysis is here. All right, so stakeholder analysis means that we need now to understand who are the people or the stakeholders we are targeting. All right, so if you remember, the first one here, the principles, the first one is know your audience. So this is where the knowing part will come in. This strategy will come in. The analysis of these stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? What are their influence? What influence they can put in the projects? And some people, big people, popular people, famous people, can really influence some. The ability to reject or resist the project or support the project. So you have to identify these kind of these individuals or groups that will be very beneficial for the overall success of your project. So stakeholder analysis, this the identification of the key stakeholders. So there's a word, the keyword here is key. So the ones that are really very influential, and also somebody that has a very high interest as well for the project. Okay, so these are the ones that we really want to focus most of our strength, most of our engagement, because they will affect a lot of the overall success of the project. assessment of their interest and the ways these interests affect the project and its viability, okay? The success of the project. So why do we do this? This is important. Again, we can get that project into shape by getting the most influential stakeholders. All right, the most influential stakeholders. If the community is the most influential stakeholder, then you need to get the support. You need to identify them. You need to identify who is the leader of that community. Because in every community, there's always a leader. Somebody has the voice, the people will listen. All right, so you have to identify these people or their groups. Improve the quality from their input. You have to listen to them. Win resources, because in any stakeholder engagement, it involves money. It really involves a lot of money. So you need to have that resources as well, because you need to do some workshops, maybe some you need to show some demonstration plan, for example. You need to go somewhere else in a different place. So these are a lot of things that you need to have a lot of resources with, especially with money. Yeah, so you need to get to win resources by using this stakeholder analysis and build understanding. It means that you know what to do. You have a specific plan for each of the stakeholder that you have identified, what kind of activities are good for them, and getting ahead of the game. So if we have an understanding of who are we dealing with, then we may have some anticipation. We anticipate what will happen. We anticipate the kind of activities or the problems that will possibly come in, and then you have some sort of action ready, what to do if that problem will come in. All right, so there's a good anticipation. So this is very, very important process, identifying these stakeholders. So step one, how to conduct this stakeholder analysis. First, of course, if you are the project leader, you don't want just to identify by yourself who are the stakeholders, who are these people that you need to include in that process. You have to involve a team for that. You need to also gain suggestions from your team members or some other groups, and identify together, brainstorm together, who should be our stakeholders, who should be our targeted stakeholders, who are those influential people or organization who will have the high interest and high influence, who are people that has less interest and less influence, and we don't need to put a lot of time and effort on them because they're at the bottom part, although they are very important still. But most of our time and effort should be targeted to people who can affect our project, right? So that's a way of prioritizing. You have to prioritize who you will give more of your time. So you can do a lot of other strategies like this. You sticky notes, some mind mapping. Just try to see who are the people that you can work with on the organization. But every time you identify your stakeholder, you make sure, especially if it's an organization or a group of people, you cannot just put there an organization. Yeah, you cannot just, for example, UTS. You just don't put UTS there. Okay, so you have to identify who is the key person in that group, because you cannot just talk with UTS. It's a group. It's a big organization. So try to identify who is the leader that needs to be contacted in that. So identify the specific person that you can involve in your stakeholder engagement. So key individuals is important. And then after you have identified your stakeholders, you have listed down who are the stakeholders, then prioritize them in a power, influence, and interest level. So who are very powerful, and then who are also have a high interest on your particular project, right? So powerful and interest. So for example, these are just some examples, all right? There are various stakeholders, like the various stakeholders, government, it could be some water bodies, it could be media, the local community, education, it could be a number of subgroups within those stakeholders. It could be, for example, local community, there are residents, there are some indigenous residents as well, some local groups, some Asian, some other groups or religious groups, for example, landowners or those who are just renting or letting, business owners. So you identify all of these subgroups and then identify the individual. Of course, you have to put the name here. You have to put the name of the individuals in this area. identify who are these specific individual that are part of that group or subgroup that you need to include. And then after you have identified most of these stakeholders, give them a ranking in terms of their level of interest. How interested are they in this project? How interested will they be in this project? Yeah. And then the level of influence, you know, are people or other people listening to this person or this organization? So they're influence in affecting the overall project outcome. All right. So you need to put some numbers. So in this case, it's just 1 to 10 or 1 to 10. So the highest is 10. So they're very high interest here. 10 and 1 is the lowest interest. So you could say that government has a high interest for water purification or for a potable reuse. The media as well probably is very high interest on this. The local community is very high interest, especially for residents that will be affected in that specific community. All right. So there are a number of things. So you can put, you have to analyze this. Yeah, you have to see. You make some assumption about where to put your plant. For example, water treatment plant and their level of influence. How influential are they? For example, media could be very influential because they can really attack you. They can make some stories. They can, and then local community, the residents are very influential. If they don't like it, they will make a protest, right? They are the ones directly affected. So they're quite influential in that one. So probably they're part of the main stakeholders that you need to convince and you need to put a lot of time with because they are quite influential in the success of that project. So once you have identified, it's also good to have a graphical representation of this. So you can have the influence versus level interest of a graph. So you make some quadrants here. So these quadrants is actually, the quadrants are areas that people that can, that has high interest. So this is high interest, high influence. So this is high interest, high influence here. So this quadrant are the key stakeholders. If they belong in this quadrant, they are the people that you need to focus most of your engagement, okay, most of your time thinking of how to engage them. Then there are those people with low interest but high influence. Okay, they don't really care much, but they have very high influence. So one example probably from indigenous people, for example. If there's really not much indigenous area that are affected much, but they are somewhere there and they are also affected, that they are not highly interested, but whatever they say is quite influential, all right? Especially in Australia for the original owners of our land, they're quite influential. So you have to also keep them satisfied. This area here is high interest, but their influence is quite low. Okay, you just need to make sure that you engage with them, just keep them informing them, but regardless of how much they say or how much they do, their influence is not too high. So it's not much of a scare or a fear that it will lead to something bad to your project because their influence is quite low. There are those who are low interest and low influence. All right, so these are examples of cynics, or these are people that just they don't have much interest, they don't have much influence, but they just keep on asking questions. They just make some comments, feedback, but just making something more just keep on talking, but really they don't have much of that influence or effect on the project. So of course you still consider them, definitely. You don't leave out anybody. It's just a matter of trying to monitor and make sure they don't make so much problems that will really endanger the project. All right. So making this kind of quadrants, making this kind of stakeholder analysis and plotting in a matrix will help you really decide which of this area you need to have most of your time and energy and effort to go, because it will affect much of your outcome of your project. All right. So this is an important aspect that is similar here. And then you understand that once you have identified them, once you have identified these people, especially these people, then you need to understand your key stakeholders. What do they like? What are their interests? Why are they against it? Your project? Why are they supporting your project? What are the background? So you try to really understand them, so you will have an idea how to approach them. How do you communicate with them? how many times do you have to communicate? Because yeah, if somebody is a very influential and that person is easily annoyed, and that person is well known to be, doesn't like to spend too much, a lot of meetings, for example, then you need to make a plan on how to address that one. Maybe shorter as fewer meetings, but more quality meetings. What kind of activities you need to do? So you have to find their financial and emotional interest. All right. If they're if they have an interest in that project because they're emotionally invested on something in that particular space or particular place. Example, maybe they are planning some business opportunity in that place, and then now you are coming in, so they're affected in their own potential plan. What are their motivation of that being against or being supportive? How they want to be communicated is also very important, and how many times. Who influences their opinion. Some people are very influential, but they're also listening from some people. So you try to identify who are they listening to and who listens to them. Okay, you identify these two because this can also affect. They are listening for somebody, so you have to be aware and also try to see if you can also convince the people or person that can also influence the key person that you are looking at. Okay, how to win this support if they are very against, how to manage their opposition if ever some people are really impossible to change, impossible to convince, then you need to plan how do you manage it, how do you make sure that you control the damage it can do to your project outcome. So you have to make sure how to manage the plan, and then who else might be influenced by their opinion. So people who are also their voice that listens to them. These are also important aspects that you need. So it means that overall you need to understand and know who the persons or stakeholders you are looking at, especially the key stakeholders. Okay. So these are engagement strategies. So this is also again related to this one. 5 stakeholder engagement and evaluation strategies. So it's related to this one, and you can find some example on that in our discussion here. All right. These are some engagement strategies. Make sure that procedural fairness is clear. You make sure that you listen, come back, listen, reflect, evaluate and listen. So you have to have that kind of fairness, and also make sure that to let them know what will you do with their suggestion, what will you do with their opinion. All right, make sure that you are clear with that one, and you provide quality time and also the number of times that you are going to meet with them. So if you have, for example, key stakeholders, like policymakers, politicians, CEOs, and you have also community stakeholders, education stakeholders, project-specific stakeholders, then what sort of activity or strategy should you do? And each kind of stakeholder will have different ones, all right? So it has to be different. For example, in this case, most of the time, this politicians, government, if you have a key stakeholder in that, you're trying to look for funding opportunities, right? Some funding support. So you may also join or make some special functions just for them. Make some special functions, so opportunity to talk with them and be engaged with them. Or maybe you can go for a parliamentary engagement, like going to their on their grounds, like the politicians and policymakers, and present whatever plans you have and engage with them and discuss with them in a parliamentary engagement style. For community, of course, the usual ones, town hall meetings. Town hall meetings is like you gather everybody, you call everybody in a specific place, and then you discuss your plans and you hear them out of their opinions as well. Workshops, you will have a form of workshop together, probably like this. There's a workshop, you discuss, you make some suggestions with drawings or some graphical things, and you discuss things. So you open up a lot of discussion along with the residents there, and door-to-door meetings as well. Some interviews can be possibly done. It's more personal in a sense, more work, but it also probably be a good way to make sure that they are not wasting their time going somewhere to attend, or maybe it's also a personal note, really understanding individual cases for each family or each individual, what are their opinions and all. So these are the types of activity you can do as a strategy. Education stakeholders are those in schools, university, and these are mostly academics, researchers. Probably one of the engagement strategy you can do probably is to talk with students, because this was done by Singapore before. They really brought all the young students to a center. They brought in a demo center to show what are the like a museum, like they show this process of the water treatment, the wastewater treatment. They let the students drink the water. They show the students that drinking the water that's clean and safe. The students also try the drinking water. So the students are very excited, and also very, they believe this, they saw the process and they believe that the quality is good. And so in this strategy, once the students are convinced, they go home and tell their parents. They tell their parents, oh, this is what we did and this is what is good and everything. So in that sense, you also, indirectly convincing the parents, because students are already convinced in a way. So this is a very good strategy as well for those in the university and education stakeholders. Project-specific stakeholders, these are those that are really directly affected, especially if the wastewater treatment plant is being located in that specific area, in that specific community. Then you need to have, these are very influential and high interest as well. So you have to have different sort of activity, primarily targeted to them. So I guess in that sense, I think you may also like to engage them by bringing these residents or key stakeholders or these powerful, influential people in that area to a place where you can show a demo plant. Yeah, something that the process is there. You can let them smell the process, if it's smelly or not. You can show what are the different process, explain the membrane process, the way it works, the kind of quality of water that is coming from the pre-treatment. What is the quality of water after the membrane? What is the quality and the final water? And show them how you drink the water. What are the water quality? Compared it with the common standards, for example, and let them feel, and in a physical way, and also showing that one. And I think it will improve the level of convincing power if they experience firsthand of the type of process you're doing, and then showing your capability as well as the technological capability. And so they will improve their understanding and also probably believe more of you, the capability of that process to provide safe drinking water, as well as the process is good for the community without any smell or odor. All right, so those are some of the engagement activities. Yes, I already mentioned this one. Some of other activities, the usual ones. One-on-one interviews could be possible. Workshops, surveys are also done. A lot of surveys, online surveys or paper surveys. Some interview in television just to make some information drive. I think social media is very, very important these days. Especially many of the people are staying at home. I think social media will be a very good avenue for expressing and trying to engage people as a way of information drive as well, or maybe some form of engagement. It depends. And then some network events. This is for verbal or oral. Written activities. It could be social media again, like writing and Facebook, Twitter. Press releases, okay, and advertisements, reports that you can distribute to many of the stakeholders to show some studies behind historical and or other cases around the world. So if you provide some proof, so these are good activities that can be done as well as an engagement exercise for many stakeholders. So okay, let me just breathe a little bit. Any question? It's been very quiet, so I'm not even sure if you're still there. Guys, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
All right, at least one is there, so I'm good. Somebody's listening to me. Okay, good. The example activity, engagement that provides input to the community. So this is more or less just information drive. All right. There was a time that there's a brief moment. There's a time about the trend on stormwater pollution. So there's an information drive about telling people about the potential of pollution based on stormwater pollution. There's the sources of this, of stormwater pollution. So one of the main source is on cleaning the cars. So if you are putting a lot of, this soap on the cars are form of surfactants, for example, and some chemicals there. And if you wash the car, a lot of times it goes towards the ground and to the storm, to the drainage, for example, it goes towards with the storm water. So it pollutes more because of this cleaning of the cars outside, for example. That could lead to that one. So a small postcard was sent out to families like that, and just a brief of explanation at the back about the dangers of this as well. So they are very much, informed, and then maybe minimize their way of cleaning the cars, so to minimize additional storm pollution to the stormwater. So this is another source. So this is a way of doing that as an information drive. You can do different things. This time, social media is very, very important. So I highlighted social media here. Websites you can make, some newsletters or papers, paper targeted way, also possible, but maybe not too interested at this point. And some face-to-face initiatives as well, which are already outlined in previous case. So this kind of activity have already resulted to a positive outcome in a previous experience. All right. Also, this one, another one is the 6 inputs from the community. So this one is more or less, having that input. The other one is more one-sided. It's information drive. This one is more of two-sided. So you give and forth. There's you're getting from information from surveys and polls, online or paper surveys, online discussions. So you're really hearing them, interviews even. Most of the time you do meetings like the town hall meetings as well as workshops. So this is very, very usual and common for many of these consultation way of getting input from the community. Even a simple talk would suffice for engagement as well, for some of the folks inside the community. All right. Yes. The thing is, once we have all of these processes and engagement activities, don't forget about evaluation. All right. You need to. This evaluation and reflection is always important, because this is the only way you really realize and understand and learn from the processes itself and to the outcome as well. So what you have done well and what has not been done well. So it means that you learn from the mistakes and then make some improvements and do not do it in the next time. But along the way, even the community accepts or are very, they approve of the project, but along the way, you still have some problems. So you need to record this one and then evaluate. So evaluation is always a constant process. So you always evaluate, learn, do something, act on it, then evaluate again at a certain point, a certain time. So the importance of evaluation cannot be underestimated, right? This is very, very important. Okay, so you can also like the process indicators, especially during the engagement part, how many participants came, why did only small or why so many participants came at that time, are they very engaging or not engaging, are they satisfied, are there so many complaints? So try to understand these various indicators during the engagement process. If there are some changes on the behaviors, the knowledge based on your workshops, for example, or some demo showing. So a lot of things can be done on this. All right. Okay, so I have a case study one for this. I'll just make it quickly. Yes, almost 10 minutes more left. Okay. So this one is a case study. There's a failed project in Australia. It's in Toowoomba in Queensland. So Toowoomba is known as a garden city. So there's a lot of flowers, beautiful flowers over there. but they were having a lot of critical water scarcity problem in early 2000. So there's a bit of situation there. They don't have some additional sources of water. So there's a lot of restrictions. You can limited about showering, watering the plants, and so these are a lot of restrictions in 2003. So the government at that time introduced Water Futures Initiative, okay, by the city council. So they try to plan out to have an advanced water treatment plant that could provide some potable drinking water from recycled water. All right, so this is gonna be the first ever treatment plant for potable purposes because they have to augment water supply at that time. They don't have any other source anymore. They announced that one, but the problem is when they announced the plan, they did not do anything right away in terms of engagement with the people. They don't really explain things. They don't have information drive and everything like that. So the other group that are very against this system of this plan, which we call as the citizens against drinking should be drinking, against drinking, yeah, the citizens against drinking sewage or wastewater, the CADs, what we call as CADs, actually started right away. They did information drive right away, all right? So they have the first movers advantage. The government, the council did not do much, at least for the next 3 months, but the CADs people, they do a lot of information drive, how dangerous is this process, the quality is not safe, there's a lot of germs, a lot of bacteria. So people are getting this information right away. So people have that, have that information and negative information. So they're how to say, the way they think and the way they believe is those information that were given. So most of the people are actually believing this one now because the council did not do much right away. So what happened? They made a referendum. They have to vote if they are to go about this recycled water plant or advanced water treatment plant or not. And after the referendum, yeah, 60% was really opposed. So it means most people, 60% of people said no, let's not go ahead with this one. So it failed. So that project did not materialize, even though there was a necessity at that time, just because they failed in the very essential aspect of stakeholder engagement. So this is the timeline, a bit of the timeline. So this timeline is for the CADs, all right? So right away, the CADs, after announcement, the CADs right away started their campaign. They made a website. They made a website. They made some stories. They made a lot of information drive. They destroyed the credibility of the council, for example. They know about will the guinea pigs drink? So it means that since that's the first time ever in Australia, it means they are making experiments for them. They're trying to tell people that we are being experimented because this is the first time, nothing has been done before. So these are the dangers. Save your children now. So the dangers to the children. So there's a lot of negative things that were given. That was in December 21st, 2005. Only then, in March 2006, so you see around 3 months after, only then the water booklet from the council, the government is being released, telling them how it works, information drive, telling them, debunking all the theories from them. So it's more of reactive way rather than, more of a targeted way. So they are reacting to whatever they're posting. So they are answering questions. They are trying to make people believe them. But yeah, unfortunately, it was not successful because many people have been already believing at the start about what been, they have some proof, or for example, like that, and they failed to really convince people. So that's why eventually this this project failed. All right, but many years later, when a similar story was, in fact, when somebody was asking the same questions, there was a different answer. The answer was it would have been a yes, had they have known the technologies and everything, the information. at that time. But unfortunately, there was a first mover's advantage, and so it failed. All right, so this is an issue of trust as well. If you look at this table during that, survey of during that time, look at this table. The least trusted or the least trusted people are politicians here, 9%, and the people who are promoting that project were politicians. They're telling people were having issues about maybe these politicians have some hidden agenda. Maybe they are trying to make money. Maybe there's a history before that already failed, and these are the same politicians. So there are some issues like there that also affected the trust of the people. That's why it's also failed. Right. Okay, so that's for the failed one. Let's go for a better case. Singapore New Water. It's a success story. Singapore is a small country, but it's a very powerful country. Small country, but well governed and very powerful. They have a lot of research there. You have a very good. They are leaders in membranes as well in research. They are also leaders now in terms of having this wastewater and desalination processes as well, because they're one of the first in terms of full acceptance from the people of having an indirect potable reuse. So if you can look at here the process, this is the treatment of used water, so from a wastewater treatment plant. So whatever is discharged here, some are discharged directly to the natural environment, to the sea as a discharge. Okay, there's a natural evaporation, and then the rain. So the rain is a natural water cycle and putting into dams. But the other side, the other part are actually produced as branded as new water. So this new water has two cases. The one is direct non-potable use. So it means that whatever treated from here, the treated water will go to industry for cleaning, for cooling. So these are the things for non-potable. These are not for drinking. And another part is actually used for indirect potable use. So it means that some parts of this goes directly to the reservoir here, and they go towards a treatment process, another treatment, this process here. So this is the new water treatment process. Coming from here, towards to a reservoir, and then to a treatment process, and then this treatment process goes towards the domestic for drinking purposes, all right, for distribution. So, and also they are augmenting additional from desalination technology. So there's also seawater augmented as desalination technology to produce more fresh water. So their sources will be wastewater for potable purposes as well as desalination water. So the process of your new water comes with from the treated wastewater treatment plant, it goes here. So this is the part here. It goes to a pre-treatment microfiltration process, then a reverse osmosis process, a bit of disinfection, for example, here as a UV disinfection, and then it's distributed in a branding of new water. So basically, it's coming from a treated wastewater here, but indirectly becoming a potable water. So this one was commissioned in 2000. Most of the water in Singapore are imported from Indonesia. Malaysia, sorry, from Malaysia. Until now, there's still a big part chunk is from Malaysia, but ultimately their plan is to be more water secure in the future. So eventually they have to increase more of these sources of alternative sources to be more secure in their overall water distribution. So it's about 40% recycled water constitutes 40% of the potable water supply in Singapore. It looks like this. I'm not sure if they have changed the design already, but anyway, this is the new water. Okay, so new water, you will not find any word of wastewater there. So basically, these are being accepted. If you have been to Singapore, probably you have drunk this one as well. That's fully accepted by the people generally. So what they do that make them successful. All right, so there are key challenges, for example, here. The first one is the yuck factor, the psychological fear or the stigma of having that wastewater to drinking purposes. Another one is the negative connotation of the key term like wastewater. And then, of course, the mindset of the people. The mindset of the people that this is a new process. In fact, it is not, because this process of having this from wastewater or from wastewater to drinking purpose is actually happening in nature. It's just a matter of understanding what is the water cycle and how it works. And I think once the community understands that one, then they have more, convincing power of like, oh, it's just nature's way of providing water. So how did they do the challenge of psychological fear? They present a lot of the proof of the technology, the treatment process. They presented a lot of information. They made some demo plant. They make some museum of that, how it works. They let the people feel and show how it works. And then they're focusing on the technology itself, the process itself, rather than the source, the wastewater source. They don't really focus too much on that. It's on the quality of that product water, right? And then the information drive is also mainly using layman's terms. It means simple words. They don't use very technical words that people will not understand. So they need to make sure that people can connect and understand things easily. So that's why they're very good at this one. Also, terminology is the better reflect the process or its values as a resource. So there are many technology like new water, for example. And then the new water process. The new water process is basically a natural water cycle, but at a much faster way. All right. So it's a shortcut, not really a shortcut, but a faster or speedier process of the natural water cycle. It's just a matter of explaining that to people. It's a water cycle. It's just, coming in and out from the environment. So this one is just speeding it up. All right. So that way, these three challenges have been addressed properly. And then they communicate with the stakeholders properly. There's a lot of campaign on that one. They're saying that the quality of the water is in fact meeting or even better than the World Health Organization guidelines or standard. All right. And then if we do this, the government says, if we do this, we will help our country be more water secured because it will be more resilient. If suddenly, like for example, if suddenly Malaysia says, we don't want to support you anymore, we don't want to give you water anymore, what will happen to Singapore? It means they will have lack of water supply. So it means they have to let people understand that if that's gonna be the future, we want to make sure that will not happen. We will have our own water source, right? So they are putting that one as a very good communication. And they got support from media, from opinion leaders and the public, and their government officials at that time were the ones, standing as models. They're really showing the people that everything is safe. So what they're doing, they go to the public, they attend some ceremonies, whatever they do, they bring the water and they drink it in the public. They're showing it's safe. Everybody is showing, this is from there, we drink, we are okay, we are safe, it's healthy, no problem. So it helps a lot. When you believe in the government, when you believe that the quality is good and they're showing it, then it helps a lot in the convincing power. So the choice awards, again, it becomes new water for their case, all right? So if you look at an example of their new water quality, the quality of that product water from that process, this is the WHO standards, the World Health Organization. So you can see from here, like turbidity, color, this one is better. Total dissolved solid is much less than 500, for example. Fluoride is 0.5, which is less than the standards. The other things are also less than the standard. So it means they are everything in that water quality, which they are showing to the public as well, are actually meeting or even better than the standards. All right. So this is one aspect of proof that the quality is in fact good and that the process is effective, and don't focus too much on the source. Right. So that's one way for that. These are the example of visitor centers, like some museums or visitor centers that they show some kids there, students, to come play with it, try to experience the things. They give some water, they show the process, how it works. So everybody's understanding from the little kids until they grow up. This is open to the public sampling and everything. So they have a first-hand experience and they're safe and they're healthy. So it gives more convincing power for all. All right, the last two, I think the SWOT analysis for this. for the successful Toowoomba situation, you can see from here, the strength of that is they have the local source of water supply. They have a lot of wastewater. They have a lot of how to say support and experience from the professionals, academics, and all of these things. So they have that support at that time. There's a good opportunity at that time is basically the wastewater for potable reuse will be an additional augmentation, you know, as a water supply, additional water. So it's a very good opportunity. However, the weakness is it's going to be the first project in Australia for potable reuse. So it means that people may not like it. So the community engagement was decided. They said they would do it, but was only very late, you know, 3 months later. So very, very late. The implementation is very late. So if you do community engagement, you need to do it at the start. Public outreach is also very late and very short. Instead of 3 years of planning, they plan to 3 years engagement and outreach. But because of the CADs, the people that are negative, they have to shorten it. So they have from 3 years to become 3 months. It's very, very short, no quality engagement. If that's the case, no quantity of engagement, so not good. Politics at that time, probably politicians, they are not very trusted at that time, probably because of some, you know, connotation of hidden interest or some hidden motivation. All right, there's not much explanation about the process, so they're lacking a lot in terms of the weaknesses. And this one, emotional issues, were highlighted by opponents. So especially the mothers, they're one of the headlines. There was more of, you know, are you ready to for the safety of the kids? So emotional, the mothers are very emotional with this one, especially with the kids. So they are very, very fearful of that. What will happen, you know, if their quality is not assured. So some threats, they think that because this is the first ever project in Australia, they feel that they are guinea pigs or the experiment only. So there will be the test sample. There was a threat of the first mover advantage by the citizens against drinking sewage, which is true. This is one of the main reasons for the failed, and there's a distrust. All right, so so these are the SWOT analysis for that, and the result was overwhelmingly opposed for the referendum. For the new water, there are also the strength and opportunities here. There's an awareness of reliant water supply. Sorry, my voice is becoming hoarse now. And then this meeting the guidelines for WHO, and there's a lot of information drive given, and also some sample projects that were successful, and people were also understanding of these successful projects. So they're really good information drive. There's also very good consultation and stakeholder, and their government is trusted very well. So there's a trust on the people in the government and the government itself. You have to maintain the opportunities or to maintain trust or build trust. The belief of the community, there's an opportunity to improve that one. Weaknesses is because it is used for potable reuse and not potable reuse. So potable is more resistant from the public, and the yuck factor. All right. So this also showing that when you look at the SWOT analysis, you can see there's a lot of strength and a lot of opportunities. So it means more or less it's going towards a positive side. So when you do the SWOT analysis, you will have an idea of where your project is standing. So if you have a lot of weakness and threat, then yeah, it will tilt that way. So in this case, it's a lot, right? So that's why there's also some kind of failure overall. All right, so in summary, just to be very, very clear, do not, never underestimate the importance of stakeholder engagement, never. You are going to be future engineers, or some of you are engineers already, some of you are professionals. If you are given a project or anything, always make sure that you connect, you do the stakeholder engagement if you want your project to succeed. That's part of sustainability. Do a SWOT analysis, do stakeholder analysis, and then manage it properly. And do not forget to have evaluation at the end. All right, the quality is more important than the quantity, but make sure there's how to say, the fairness of the procedure is there, and then everything will be hopefully the community will give you that social license to operate, and then the whole of the project outcome will be positive. All right, I guess that's it for today. I'll just provide additional videos probably of some of the slides that were not, I did not put it here. The next topic will be on water quality sources, as well as advanced water and wastewater treatment in module 2. But yes, this is for module 1. We will have only until 12 today. We don't have any class this afternoon, but use the other time to check your assessment, try to understand the requirements based on this explanation as well. Yeah, I forgot to show you some example. Okay, I'll give you some example for a good example. All right, so this is a good example of an assessment. You can see here, you don't need to put it here because the scenario is that you act as a consultant from Sydney Water. So this guy, the student also tried to pretend this is a Sydney Water report. Of course, there's a sort of explanation here, a disclaimer that this is just for purposes of the report. Very good report. It's quite long. You don't need to be too long, but make it concise and clear. I think summary is very good here. I don't want to go in details, all right? I just show you overall view of how it looks like. If you look at itself in terms of the technical, projection or the way the report looks, it's very, very professional, all right? It looks good on you because you need to practice making professional reports, all right? The background, the state of water in Australia, some of the, supply, what are the direct potable use, and then some other future directions, all right? Some opportunities and threats here, some of the, how to say, the analysis, stakeholder analysis, and a lot of things. He or she made a lot of good references as well, and good discussion on that. So overall, this is a very, very good report on that one, just touching on each of the sections that were given to you in your template. All right, that's a good example. What a not so good example looks like this. This is a not so good example. All right, you need to make it more professional in terms of how to say, presentation. What makes this not very good example is the way the discussion is flowing. There's not much discussion, very short. Putting some figures without any discussion about the figures is not good. If you put some figures, make sure you discuss the figure and also try to put the references of that figure. If it's not your figure or table, make sure to cite them properly. Yeah, they discovered some situational analysis here without the graphical representation. Also, overall, it's quite short. There's not much explanation. It's just more 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. So, although it's a borderline project or example, so you have to at least expand. Try to answer the guide questions and just try to expand and make sure that you generate some or get some information from literature, especially the latest ones, and peer-reviewed articles as well. All right, another borderline, not very good example, is that no cover page. I don't even know there's no name, nothing. Okay, I don't even know from this one. Figures are not clear. There's no explanation. Yeah, a lot of figures, but there's really no need for them if they are not discussing them. It's not cited as well properly. There's no citation from there. Yes, and community engagement is very, very short. Like, yes, it's so short. And yeah, and then references are very, very short, few as well. You need to have at least 15 just to make sure that you have a broad, reading of the of your report. So basically, the ultimate message for this is, if you follow this one, try to just touch on and make sure that you read related literature. Do not base your report on Wikipedia, for example. No, make sure you base it from peer-reviewed articles, journals, Some reports, yes, that's true. But mainly from peer-reviewed articles, all right? And just follow all of them, and then look at our lectures for today as well. Try to see how to approach or try to explain the various situational analysis. What are these? How to do the stakeholder analysis and explain the key stakeholders. So I think that should be it. It's self-explanatory here. Anyway, if you have some questions or clarifications along the way, of course, just email us, and I think we will make a schedule for a consultation. I will just announce that one. So there will be a time for us to, of course, manage or clarify things from your side as well. And I will post some of these examples online, and yeah, for your own guidance. All right. Yeah, I'm losing my voice now. I think that's it for today. Any question? Yeah, any questions? So this is a question like for your task, okay? Question, clarification, feedback, anything?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Who's this? Who's talking?
Gabriella.
Gabriela. Yes, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you where you would be uploading this recording so I can go back and listen to bits I need more clarification on to.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Gabriela. That's good. Actually, if I receive the recording right away, I will probably upload tonight. The latest will be weekend, but probably tonight once I receive the recording of this from Zoom. Yeah. Is that does answer your question?
Will it be on Canvas?
Yes, definitely. I will post it somewhere here, or yeah, in modules. All the materials will be in Canvas anyway. So yeah, it could be somewhere here or some. Oh yeah, maybe after here. Yeah, okay, we will put it online, and then probably we'll send an email, or Professor Sean will probably upload something for this as well. Yeah. And also assignments, you have to know where to submit, right? This one. So student view should be able to submit this one here. Yeah, the other assessment should be, we need to like it from here, and there will be a Turnitin. So your Turnitin result, plagiarism should be, you have to make sure that you don't plagiarize. It is mentioned in our subject outline about plagiarism. So look at the subject outline. At the end of the subject outline, there's a section about plagiarism, what to avoid, how to avoid, and also as much as possible your similarity as 10% or less. That would be good, so that just to make sure that you avoid that one. If there is a similarity on the reference list, don't worry too much about that, because the reference list is not really considered plagiarism if they are the same in the reference list only. But the content should be free of, or not free, but low similarity or low similarity index from Turnitin result. Right, so you can submit your assignment from this side. Okay, any other question? Clarification?
So when you will organize the consultation timing?
It depends on you. When do you, maybe next week or 2 weeks from now?
Maybe 2 weeks would be better to have a more discussion after they preparing their assignment one.
Yes, that's fine with me. Yeah, 2 weeks should be okay. Yeah. Do we announce that one, or we'll just announce later? Yeah.
Later on, yeah.
All right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Anything else? All right. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you. Do you want to say something, Professor Sean, or you have an announcement, or?
No, everybody have a good weekend and stay safe.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Yeah, I'll upload this one soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lennon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.